Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS T-drift.
Contact, I am in orbit. The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Good evening. I'm Joe Root, and this is Lighting the Void. Thank you guys for listening wherever you're listening from across the World Wide Web. We are live on the Fringe FM and also on lightingthevoid.com. That is the website, so you can come check us out over at lightingthevoid.com. That is not a very, I guess you could say, marketable and search engine friendly name. So when you think about it, think about lighting, like a light bulb. Lightingthevoid.com. Also, if you want to follow us on social media, just search Lighting the Void. Now, tonight, I wanted to kind of run guest-free here. If I could, I might call upon Ryan for this, but I know you guys don't believe in some of the stuff that we talk about, but I will tell you some of the things that have happened to kind of prove this stuff to you, in a way. So, I wanted to talk about the hero's journey, and as sappy as that sounds, because it is incredibly sappy when you think about it. It is the story of your life, not just my life, everybody's life. And if you were to call upon any professional astrologer at this moment, and I'm not talking about people that do papers, you know, the horse, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about some of these cats that charge $300 to $1,000, you know, astrologers that are doing astrology for presidents and these types of things. You would see that we are in a time of, I guess you could say, reaping what we sow, but also being put in check. Now, if you can go to any astrology app and look at this, you can see that Capricorn and Saturn are kind of, I guess, exalted right now, and they're not really giving us any help. So everything that can go wrong is going wrong. For a lot of people. I'm not saying everybody, but for a lot of people. Financially, it doesn't matter what it is. People, I just see it. And the more I see this stuff, the more I think about John Anthony West's book, you know, A Case for Astrology, and how I believe it's real. Now, when I say I believe it's real, not like, hey, the planets are influencing us energetically, which I kind of think that could be going on, but there's no way to prove that except for the moon. But if you look at astrology from a time clock, like a time clock, just a clock, like we look at the clock, it's just a measure of time. That's all it is. And so that's what these people have done since the beginning of time. This stuff happens when these planets are here and these signs are there, and they did it for thousands of years and recorded it. And now they're able to forecast because of this. And what I'm seeing is what's going on is a lot of backlashes. And here's what I mean by that. I know it's kind of confusing what I'm saying here. So Saturn, let's think about Saturn for a second. In the occult world, it rules the word no, the color black. It's the great judge, Father Time, pretty much like the stern, strict father that makes sure that you do everything right and makes sure that it sets limits. It also rules over death. And then you've got Capricorn there too. So I don't want to get into all the astrology stuff, but what I'm saying is there are people right now going through a cycle of everything that they didn't do. It's being shown to them. Everything they should have done, whether it's clean up, do this or that, it's being shown to them financially, health-wise, all this stuff. And I got some really sad news. Some of you think that I would like to hear this, but I heard that one of the other networks is coming down because a network that's been doing this stuff for 11 years, way longer than we have. We've only been here for 2 years. That is not what I want to see happening. I have respect for the guy that owns that network. And it's just, this is one of those cases where it's so hard to explain because I know it's so hard to believe, but it's one of those cases where I think planetary alignments are really challenging a lot of us right now. I've gotten maybe 2 donations in this month for like a couple of dollars, maybe, you know, that's, some of the advertisers aren't ponying up stuff, but that you start thinking, what happens is you start thinking all of this stuff is happening to you and to you alone. But you forget that it's happening to everybody else too. There's when it comes to planetary alignment, we might think that we're cursed. We might think that we did something wrong, or it's just a bad time, or it's karma. It could be a little bit of karma, but it's just a bad alignment, and it will phase. So whatever you're going through, when things get tough, you don't quit. You can't quit. But you do learn some hard lessons. You really do. So when we talk about cause and effect, which is a Hermetic principle, that is just pretty much saying, that's showing you karma in action. When you have a business, it's kind of like when you have a family, and if you have anything that's yours, pets, business, family, whatever you have to take care of it, and you make mistakes, and then you do some good things and you do some bad things and you learn from it. I can tell you behind the scenes in this community, there's a lot of people that want you to take sides or want you to war against certain people. They want you to believe certain things. They want you to be where they are. They want you to believe what they believe. But the thing is all of this stuff happens to all of us. And that's why I wanted to talk about the hero's journey. There's a cycle of things that happen to you in your life that you're going to go through that not only are you being tested, and I have no idea who's testing us. You could call it God, you could call it your higher self, or you could just call it random acts of bullcrap. But literally everything that can go wrong feels like it is going wrong sometimes. Today that's happened to me. Well, both vehicles are down here. I can't get out. Technically, everything's going wrong. Financially, everything's going wrong. And when these things happen, we feel like it's only happening to us. But I challenge you to just take a brief moment to look at astrology. Just pull up an astrological chart, especially if you know how to read your own birth chart, and just see what's going on out there. Things are tough for a lot of people. Eric is losing his mother. You know, she's in hospice care right now and pretty much on her way out. I know a friend, I wish I could say some of the names of this stuff, man, but a friend of mine has lost a couple of friends, couple of good friends. I'm watching a couple of shows that possibly didn't get sound checked. I really don't know what happened. Go down another whole entire network that's been there for 11 years, pulling the pin on their network. It's not something to celebrate. It's not good, because if we're real seekers in this community, if we really believe in this stuff that we talk about, and we've got to figure out how to pull together and make through it and get through it. This is why, one of the reasons why I've even talked about magic and the occult on this program. On the broadcast, it's been incredibly difficult for me to bring up any of this stuff because it can be a little bit dangerous, especially when you're trying to teach certain things that you probably aren't that well versed in anyways. But all I'm trying to do is make people aware that it happens to some people, and it doesn't happen to everybody, right? Some people are exalted in these signs. Some people that have taken care of everything that they were supposed to take care of are reaping the rewards. So that's why astrology is fascinating. It's a lifelong study. You could look up any video. There's a video that talks all about this. And I don't want to get into what's happening to certain people right now, but there's a video that talks all about this. It's Gordon White and Austin Coppock talking to each other about the predictions of everything that's coming. So I want you to think of Saturn like your strict father who always makes sure that you do what you're supposed to do. You know, that you stay clean, you do your chores, you follow the law, you don't do what you're not supposed to do, you stay balanced. And you'll also find, if you really get into astrology, people that are exalted in these signs like Capricorn or Saturn in Capricorn, they're incredibly clean people, neat freaks, organizers. You walk into their house and it looks kind of like, I don't know if you guys have seen that show Lucifer, but kind of like that guy's house. That's how they keep their stuff. Versus somebody like me, which I'm an Aries, you know, we just kind of do everything by impulse. So that stuff, I swear I never believed in. I used to laugh and say, man, you guys are crazy. Y'all think y'all are this and that. But back then I only understood that it was just one planet. It was the sun. And that's what everybody thought. Well, the sun's in this house, so I'm a Leo or I'm an Aries or whatever. But you got planets. When you were born like a snowflake, you're unique, and you had planets all over different places, and they were at an exact certain place when you were born. So there's really there's other people that are kind of like you, but there's nobody on the planet like you. And you wonder why you have a hard time relating to people, right? But there's nobody here like you, so you're on your own journey. Now, I want to talk about hacking the system. So how do we hack the system? How can we go on this hero's journey and hack the system and make sure that none of these bad things happen to us, or we can see them coming? I'm telling you, and we're going to have Jason Augustus Newcomb on tomorrow night to talk a little bit about this, but you need to just take a look into Hermetics to understand it, or read the Kabbalion. There's some sacred knowledge there. There's things that we can see coming, things that we can take care of now, that it's not our fault that we weren't that we weren't aware of it. It's just this stuff's been hidden from us. It's just been hidden from us. Take, for instance, the Catholic Church. Did you know they have secret orders that practice magic inside the Catholic Church? They do. Do your research. Look into it. I could do a whole show about it and get into the semantics of it all, but they do. They keep this stuff hidden from what they call the profane. And Freemasonry, you go through all of these grades, even to the Scottish Rite, and then there's other things that you go into where you really start learning this stuff. This occult knowledge has been hidden under everything. And if you watch that movie, A Dark Song, which is pretty freaky, the magician in that movie says that science only talks to you about the limits of things. They can explain the least of everything. Think about that. They can explain a lot, but what they're really explaining is the least of everything. It's not when it comes to reality, anyways. And this is why we feel like we're being attacked on different levels and stuff, because we've been taught by our parents that certain things are this or that, and then you grow older and you realize that they're full of crap. But what you really need to realize is really there is nobody like you. Nobody. There's people you relate to. There's people that I guess you could call your soul family that you relate to, but there's nobody like you. So you're going to go through your own struggles, whether you have children, husband, whatever you're doing, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you got to do so you're not alone. You're going to be alone when it comes to your journey. So how do we hack the system? This is what I want to talk about. When I say hack the system, I don't mean cheat the system. But we've got to start understanding nature and how it works. Nature in the ways of vibration, nature in the ways of polarity, male, female, We can get into the Hermetic principles. And if we understand that, then we can start taking care of this stuff. And then we have a weapon to fight back during this journey. There's one thing that I'm going to tell you that you don't want to hear. And you don't want to hear this. You could be the greatest magician, wizard, witch, know the most sacred knowledge of whatever. But you're going to die. You don't have long here. There's no magician that walked that I know of that got away from that. Yeah, there's medicine and people that are talking about living forever. But think about it. When they come out with this stuff, whatever Ray Kurzweil predicted to make people live forever, when they do come out with it, only the top whatever are going to be able to afford it, and they're probably going to be like walking zombies anyways. So the average lifespan right now, I guess if you look at it, is around 80 years. So if you live to be 80 years old, you've lived a normal, decent life. You've lived good comparative to everybody else. So I imagine some of us, like me, if we looked at it, we don't know when we're going to die, but we're probably halfway through it already. So if there was knowledge out there that could teach you how to experience life in a better way, to see things coming before they happen, or to prevent things from happening because you know some sacred knowledge, wouldn't you want to do it? I'm not going to lie to you when I say that this knowledge has been hidden from you, because it has. It's definitely been hidden. And I'm not the best person to articulate it to you. There are others out there that are. But after watching the video of this other network owner that, you know, he's a grown man. He's older than me. He put 7 years, I guess, or I guess the network was up for 11 years. And I think he did the best he could based on who he is, right? I believe that. I believe he did the best he could. And yet, things still fell apart around him. Maybe he put his trust in the wrong people, maybe whatever. And maybe that can happen to you too. It doesn't mean it's, you know, we like to point our fingers and look and say, oh, look, that happened to that, so he deserved it, man. Look what happened to him. Well, if he would have done this, you know, that wouldn't have happened. But it ain't going to happen to me because I got it all figured out. Nah. But if you study some of this sacred knowledge, like the stuff you're afraid to, the people have told you it's black magic, it's wizardry, it's nothing different than Jesus taught, really, but that's what it is. That's black magic. It's wizardry. I mean, I really think it's important to look at this. So did Israel Regardie. Aleister Crowley did, but he kind of acted up. He acted out a little bit. But Israel Regardie was somebody that inspired me because he took a very secret teaching, which was called the Golden Dawn, which is where most of the modern magicians get their stuff from today. Even though they say it goes back to whenever, you know, well, they've been painting on caves since the beginning of time. But most of the knowledge everybody has today when it comes from, I guess you could say, ceremonial magic and things of that nature have been based on these things. It was hidden from you. There were temples that were hidden from you. Some of these temples were even in the church. You didn't know about it. And they practiced things, and they used astrology and alphabets and tried things, and until they figured it out that there is something lying underneath all of this. So if you can think of, when you look at your computer screen, think of that as reality. And then the code behind it is, I guess, let's say nature, the binary codes behind it. But there is a system of interface, like you would when you logged into a coding program, or the back page, I guess, of a website when you log into that you can log into and hack the system a little bit. And I don't mean make things manifest instantly, but you could say a prayer or a mantra or do a ritual or cast a certain spell for certain things to happen, and then it comes through in nature the way maybe not the way you wanted it to, but it did come through. Or you could protect yourself from karma, from planetary alignments, or from somebody thinking bad thoughts about you that's actually hurting your energetic stuff. This stuff, when I heard about all of this stuff, I thought it was crazy, man. It's wild. It doesn't make sense. It absolutely does not make sense, because my reality was based on just my 5 senses, which I'm finding out is the very least of everything. And so I experimented myself and found out that this stuff was true. And what I want to do tonight is I've never had a chance to do this. For something came up for some reason when I was trying to do this, is I wanted to really figure out where we were going to go. We did a show where we looked back on 2018 to see if we learned anything. And then the next show that I was going to do was to see where are we going to go. And real quick, I want everybody to send, if you can, send your love to Eric and also Dan. I know some of you are asking about Dan and why he hasn't been on the show lately. And I can say that, you know, Dan's dealing with his own stuff too, with health issues. And I hope, also, real quick, I want to say that the owner of this other network, whoever they are, I don't know if it's right to say their name, but I'm sure you guys know who it is. I hope they find a way not to quit. I really do. Because it's too important right now. Because a lot of us are getting closer to the truth. A lot closer than we used to be. I can feel it. I know you can. And everything happens in cycles. True, but I don't. When things get tough, I know it's so cliche, man. It sounds so stupid, right? But when things get tough on you, man, that's when you nut up. That's when you really nut up. That's when your character is tested. That's when you push yourself. When your heart's broken. When you're suffocating. When you're broke. You ain't got money for heat, or you got to choose between food or gas. When you've been diagnosed with a disease that's, they say, is going to kill you. All of this stuff is part of the journey. It's part of the journey that you chose to do when you came here. And that's when your character tested. We all get these tests. And we reach out for help when they happen, you know. We can only, here's the thing about that though. You can only reach so far. And past that point of reaching, all you can do is hope that somebody reaches back. Right? That's all you can do. Because you feel alone. And everybody does feel sympathy for you. They do, man. Prayers. I hate to hear that. I hope you make it through. But the reality is that they've got their own problems too they're trying to go through. So how do we hack this system? What do we do? And I'm asking some of you that don't believe in these things, whether you don't believe in religion, period, or you don't believe, I'm asking you to look into people like Carl Jung, the scriptures of Jesus, both Gnostic and Protestant scriptures. Read them all. I'm asking you to look at some of the stuff that Buddha talked about, John Anthony West, Robert Schoch. I'm asking you to look into these things. So when they come back on the show, we can move forward. Because the one thing that we have done is we've evolved a little bit, right? We've evolved a little bit. There's some great new technology out, but we're in a different economy. Everybody's like, oh, the economy's crashing. I'll talk about that when we get back from the break. But the economy's crashing. What are we going to do? Right? But you could have seen this coming if you'd have just pulled up a chart. And not to mention, there is something you can do about it. I've got people that aren't ponying up for me right now, and I want to think that it's all me, man. They're just out to get me. But the truth is, it's probably happening to them too. And thus, the crap rolls downhill. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. I want to say thank you to Larry for donating as well. I appreciate it, man. We'll be right back. We got to take a short break. I'm Joe Roop. This is Lighting the Void. We're live on the Fringe FM. Stick around.
Out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
All right, everyone, this is Justin from the UK. Excuse the chitty. If you're into the Fringe and you want to hear the brass tacks, my old China plate, Joe Roop and his guests on Lighting the Void will open your mince pies. You need to shut your northern south and use your 10-speed gears and listen to them bubble. You could hear a Barry Crocker, no Brussels, but he ain't no holy friar. Anyway, you beat a Barnaby Rudge and take a butcher's.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners, did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Your home has needs. It needs a healthy, dry environment all year round. Start by getting rid of the worst air in the basement and crawl space, where the problems begin and make the whole house sick. Introducing the new Smart Wave Ventilation Unit. It has advanced technologies to continuously reduce moisture, mold, and odors, and expel radon, gases, and pollutants. And now, Wave units include carbon monoxide detection to automatically expel air at a high rate and send you an alert. It also has an app so you can remotely monitor the conditions. Wave is a comprehensive, maintenance-free, affordable solution that will transform your entire home. Protect your home and family with what it needs. Give it a new Smart Wave Ventilation Unit. For more information, call 888-717-WAVE. That's 888-717-WAVE. Or go to dryhealthyhome.com. That's dryhealthyhome.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Want to know what's on the Fringe FM? Check out our schedule at thefringe.fm.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Times are changing. The circus of politics, healthcare's low standards and high prices, and let's not forget food quality. What to do? Arm yourself with Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. In a world of chemical imbalance and poor air and water quality, it's time you make a move. Log on to GetTheTea.com and stock up on organic non-GMO supplements. Don't forget the tea. Cleansing your body never felt so good. And we have a brand new tea called Takedown Tea, which helps support healthy glucose. All natural body support so you can be at your best naturally. All you have to do is log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. We're not a fad that comes and goes. We are the real deal. Join us and armor up. GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Changing America's health one tea bag at a time.
Follow The Fringe FM on Facebook and Twitter at The Fringe FM.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. If you want to call in, you can definitely. It's 1-800-588-0335. You can also text into the show at 501-777-5631. You can email the show contact at lightingthevoid.com. So we're talking about the hero's journey tonight. The journey that you take by yourself in life. And, I'm not trying to be dreadful or scary or anything, but you all know this. It's happened to you. The one thing that I wanted to tell everybody is that you were unique, that there's nobody like you. And that's, as sappy as it sounds, it's obvious, but that's why you don't relate to a lot of people. So you just understand that, number one, first and foremost. It's funny how we all have these conversations and discussions and topics as if we really get each other. But the truth is, and you know this, that there's nobody really that you can relate to totally. And we talked a little bit about astrology, and I talked about this underlying thing, and that's what I want to get to. This thing that I'm trying to understand, the thing that Carl Jung maybe talked about, the underworld. We've called it the spiritual realm. Thomas Campbell's called it a system of consciousness that needs more entropy. It's been called a lot of things. Some things I don't understand. I don't necessarily know about it, what it really is, but I know that it can be hacked. In Dean Radin's book, he talked about that magic is real, right? So we know that it's real. We've also discussed on previous shows, is it safe to do these things? If it is real, is it safe to do? Which was one reason why I've been so hesitant to discuss these things to begin with. But I want to talk about the nature of this realm that we can't see. And I feel like that I'm not really going to do it justice by, just babbling about. And so I wanted to play a clip here with a few minutes of an interview that I did a long time ago with a man named Laird Scranton, and hopefully it'll queue up here if all goes well. And we were both discussing this, trying to come to understand it. So here we go.
That's sort of the process I work with, is that I have all these different cultures that look like they're preserving the same tradition. If I want to know what a word means, I compare all the different sources I have on that word, in particular the Egyptian source, because the glyphs of the Egyptian word will tell me what the original meaning was. There are even certain Egyptian words whose purpose seems to be to define the meanings of individual glyphs. So I can lay out 100 different Egyptian glyphs and what the original meaning was based on what the Egyptian language tells me it means. And if that aligns with what the Dogon says the shape means, I'm in pretty good shape. Now I can cross-check to Buddhism and say, now, what does this shape mean for you? Or I can go to, Zoroastrianism. There are any number of, I can go to the Maori, I can go to any number of different cultures and compare the meaning of a concept or the meaning of a word or the meaning of a symbol, and triangulate in on what the likely original meaning was of that thing.
Okay. I understand. Your research is very extensive. That's what I'm getting at all this, Laird. It's very extensive research. But I'm still fascinated with what you were just talking about earlier, how the immaterial is speaking to the material in these ways. But the more you talk about it this way, it seems to me like it's a codependent relationship almost. Because we've got this idea, and we all have this idea, that the immaterial, the spiritual planes, or whatever you want to call them, are higher up, they're more knowledgeable because it's where we came from and this and that. But sometimes I wonder if the duality of that is, if that realm is just as dependent on this realm. You understand what I'm saying?
I have to say to you that your instincts are incredibly good. That pretty much everything you said to me tonight, that you've given it as it's your impression that such and such, has been really, really close to the mark, if not right on the mark, of what I see the actual truth as being.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So I would say trust your instinct. In the end, it's treated entirely as a codependent relationship of two equals. They're treated as siblings. They're treated as companions who walk side by side. And to get at the nature of that, that's largely what my book, Seeking the Primordial, is about, is there's a very long justification for why that's true. And it's a complicated justification. It's so complicated I had to create a PowerPoint presentation for myself to keep myself on track and trying to explain it to somebody because it's so easy to get pieces out of order. But there is a way to know what it's about, and when you get down to the bottom of it, it's about a codependent relationship between two universes that see each other as family members, as siblings, as twins, whatever. It's the knee-jerk reaction is to look at the non-material as being somehow superior or priority over the material. But in fact, that's not really what's going on. If you want to get into what's going on, we can talk about that.
Well, to me, everything is, like you were talking about earlier, dualistic in nature. Everything that's alive, everything that's conscious has some type of codependent system. You know, if you look at the human body, I mean, it's basically designed, at least electrically, like a battery, you know, that needs charging all the time. And, you know, you've got input and outtake in several different ways, whether it's breathing or digestion or something. It's a super dependent system. And everything that's all I'm saying. I've said it a million times on the show. Like, I think we were taught as kids, you know, you live and you die and you go to heaven and you only get one life. But something inside me tells me that life might be the most beautiful thing in the universe. That what's this play on back and forth between the two realms is the greatest thing, you know.
Right. Now, I said that Samkhya tells us that universes form in pairs. It also tells us that our universe is the fourth set of pairs out of 7 sets. That there are 14 universes that are at least being discussed by Samkhya. And they are configured like a helix.
Really?
Which calls to mind DNA.
Right.
Now, from that perspective, it might be possible that the potential for life is built right into the structure from the very start.
So it's like, this force that's given, I guess you could say, based on all these principles, and hopefully something comes out of it. Like, that's the way I look at it. Like life, it looks like it's being tried all over the universe, and a few planets here and there actually get it.
Right. Now, the Dogons say that life isn't a force as much as it is a movement of forces. Now, one of the things to compare that to, that they compare it to, is the natural water cycle. The natural water cycle is the process on Earth. There would be no life on Earth if we didn't have it. It's the process by which water evaporates from oceans to form clouds. Those clouds move over the land and up over the mountains, and when they get over the mountains, rain drops out of the clouds into the streams that flows back to the ocean. That cycle, without that cycle, you don't have life. Now, the Dogon are saying, and Samkhya is saying, that there is a cycle of scrolling energy between the two universes that's as essential to life in those universes as the natural water cycle is to life on the planet.
Fiber optic system of information now, where some people say that, well, that means the aliens came from Sirius or whatever. I read a text by Manly P. Hall where he was relating the 12, I guess it's the convolutions of the brain, to the 12 constellations. Sometimes I wonder, you know how, and this is just a knee-jerk shot in the dark here, but you know how we have this fiber optic system of information now where we transfer information through light at almost light speed. Sometimes I wonder if we're not being influenced cosmically that way by the stars and the planets as well, you know?
Well, that could be. I mean, I haven't actually studied that carefully, but, you know, the door is open to what the possibilities are here. But the ancients have not steered us wrong about this stuff. When I have a question like that, I try to find a way to get a toehold into it through ancient sources of one kind or another. What do the Buddhists say about it? What do the Egyptians say about it? That usually puts me on the right track. At least gives me a starting point.
So we were talking about this dualistic nature, and I was talking to you at break about the nature between the conscious and the subconscious. And this is something that the ancients understood as far as Renaissance magicians. They would use symbolism to affect, you know, the old cause and effect, where they could actually started learning, in my opinion, how to have this communication between the material and the immaterial. But, with a lot of experimentation and a lot of successes and failures. But is this something that you look into, the nature of the subconscious as well? I mean, obviously, if you study symbology, it's got to be pretty important.
Well, the nature of consciousness as a subject is all wrapped up in this stuff. If you consider that the potential for life is built into the system at the level of universes, then the potential for consciousness is also built in on that scale. Now, that you were also talking about numerology, and numerology gets at part of this. Dogon numerology is much simpler than what we see in Kabbalism and what we see with in some of the other cultures. For the Dogon tell us, okay, how can I say this? One of the things the Dogon are trying to foster in us is something called discriminating knowledge. That's essentially the ability to draw an inference from a set of facts that we know A, B, C, D, and F, and we have the sense to infer E.
Right.
Okay, so they tell us in their system of numerology that 3 is the number of the male. That connects to concepts of a Y chromosome that has 3 branches. That's what determines if a person's male. 4 is the number of the female. That connects to the 4 branches of an X chromosome, which determines if a person's female. 7 is the number of an individual. Makes sense?
Right.
Male and female individual. So, in an entirely different section of the Dogon cosmology, they happen to drop the fact, okay, now understand that over time there are reversals in symbolism that happen, that what starts out one way in archaic times, about midway through the tradition, we have cross-cultural reversals in symbolism happening, so that matriarchy becomes patriarchy. That's probably the obvious one that you'd be familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other symbols that reverse, and it's confusing. How come a circle sometimes represents the non-material, and other times it seems to represent the material? There are all sorts of these kinds of reversals that happen. So, looked at from the perspective, a reverse perspective of a later time, they happen to drop the fact that 4 is the number of the material. Now, the material universe represents 4 dimensions. We're also the 4th of 7 universes, which implies 4 of 7 dimensions.
Okay.
That's all they tell us. But when you have an overview of the way the parallelism works, you realize that when they tell us that 4 is the number of our universe, the universe is male, and then 4 is its number, that implies that 3 is the number of the non-material universe.
Gotcha.
But once you know that, the next step is to say 3 and 4 together constitutes an individual.
Which we're back to the whole codependent thing as far as what we have now, what we live in now. Right.
What you have is a dynamic between the non-material and the material that looks and functions very much like the dynamic between 2 hemispheres of a brain. That what we're looking at with the universe is an individual. There are questions people ask, if we were to encounter alien life, would we even recognize it? Well, there's a perspective from which, in the ancient view, universes represent an individual. This is a life form.
I understand.
And the dynamic between the non-material and the material is very similar to the dynamic between the hemispheres of the brain. Now, there's something else also going on. You familiar with the concept of the Yuga cycle in Buddhism?
Yes. Isn't it like every 26,000 years or something like that?
Yeah, roughly that, 25 to 26,000 years. A half cycle is 12,000 years. Now, there's a descending cycle where what had been more connected to spirituality becomes less and less and less connected to spirituality. There's also an ascending cycle where what was least connected to spirituality suddenly becomes more and more and more connected to spirituality. It's a cycle that goes around. It's referred to as the great year. It's compared to a year. Now, each of the half cycles there is divided into 4 segments that have certain attributes. And those segments play out very much like the 4 stages of a sleep cycle in a person.
Whoa. Yeah, I get that. So are you talking about the ages, like the dark age of consciousness? And
that's right, the Kali Yuga, and there are 4 different categories of stages of different lengths. They're all multiples of 1,200 years in the Yuga cycle. Now, in the final stage of a sleep cycle for a person, it's called REM sleep. It's when you dream. And in that stage, a person has full consciousness, but their body has inhibited them from moving because they don't want you accidentally acting out what you're dreaming. There are people who do. There are people who are dreaming that they're jumping around their room from their bed to their dresser, and the inhibitor isn't working, and they jump from their bed to their dresser.
Yeah, I've seen that before. It's wild.
Okay, so REM sleep has all the same attributes as what the Dogen are telling us are the attributes of a fully ascended non-material universe. It has perfect consciousness, but an inability to act. Now you go a step further. Not every mammal experiences sleep the way that we experience sleep. Dolphins have something called unihemispheric sleep. It's the reason they don't drown when they sleep. Half of their brain goes to sleep while the other half stays awake. And the half that's awake is helping the dolphin continue to breathe and go to the surface, take a breath, and swim and do all the things it does. When one half of the brain has finished sleeping, then they switch roles and the other half sleeps. There's a perspective from which what's happening between these 2 universes is that it's a version of unihemispheric sleep, even down to the way energy scrolls is very similar to the way energy scrolls during sleep. The problem is there's no way to tell which half is really dreaming the other half.
And that's the trippiest part of the conversation that we had. I think that conversation I had with Laird kind of sums up a lot of things. The problem is not telling which one is real. So we know that the immaterial universe is a real thing, right? We know that it exists. It's real. There's something to it. Obviously, there's something to it. But what I don't want people to do is fall into this trap of having to follow a system. And this is where I get conflicted, and I think a lot of us do. So religion was our first understanding of this reality that we can't see, or it was our first understanding that there was something else behind the scenes. And then the mysteries came along. So we understood that. We understood that we could use symbols and tap into this other part of us that was either asleep or awake. We don't really know. And that it would communicate back with us. And that's the whole thing about it. That's what we're doing. That's all magic really is using those symbols to communicate to that other part of you that's either asleep or awake, which Laird clearly said we don't know which one's really awake or asleep. And it would communicate back through us. Whether it did that through divination, like things like tarot or synchronicity or numbers that you see, or, everybody always says, look, it's 1111, 777, or whatever. That kind of stuff. Deja vu, or when you think about somebody when they call. Another person that I had on the show that really got me thinking about this was Lon Maladuquette, who is a ceremonial magician, that said that we're kind of like asleep in this Russian nesting dolls. You know how you just keep opening them up and then you're awake finally when you're at the very big one. But that's assuming that this world is not the real world and the other one is, and that we're going to wake up to it. To me, I don't see that because we don't really know which one is which. But what we do know, and this is getting stupid and deep here, but what we do know is that there's a form of communication. Now, the choice is do we embrace that, or do we become scared of it? And think about what I mean by scared. If you were a child and you walked into, let's say, your parents' bedroom and they were wearing robes and looked like they, they had symbols all around them and burning incense and doing some kind of mantra, you would think that your parents have gone back crazy, especially if you're from here. But what they're really trying to do is talk to that other side that they don't know that they know it's there. They just don't know what it is. And they do it through symbols, or they do it through gods, because it's like Joseph Campbell, right? You guys know about that. The power, the myth, et cetera, et cetera. What I'm worried about is, instead of us embracing this knowledge and going down this road to figure out what it is, because I think, I'll get to this later, but I think it leads to aliens, by the way. But going down this road is that we're taught to be afraid of it. Meanwhile, the people like some of the, I would say the top 1% or whatever, is using these things against us. So it's open. It's free for you to study on the internet. You can go look it all up if you want. You can go to the bookstore and get it, but it's all there. Now, you don't have to practice magic to do this. You can do simple exercises, I guess, but we know that sigil magic works because so many people talk about how it works, which is really dumb. How does that work? I'm writing my intent on a piece of paper. I will, or I desire something that I want. I take out all the consonants, I take out all the vowels, and then I, charge it however I charge it, and then it comes back and it becomes real, and it may not be exactly how I wanted, but it did come back. Why does that happen? Now, what I'm saying is if that can happen, and the cycles of the universe can kind of forecast certain things that are coming to you, then why aren't we all utilizing that for a better life and a better experience through the hero's journey? So really all we're trying to do is tap into the system behind the website. If you want to use that dichotomy that I was talking about earlier, where the binary system is nature, your login to the code program is, I guess you could say, magic or mysticism, and your computer screen is the reality. But there's something behind all of that that we can't see that is there for real. And some of the greatest mystics of our time and magicians, Grant Morrison, Aleister Crowley, people that have really, I'm talking about, went to the edges of reality when it comes to the subconscious and tapping into these realms, ended up having some type of alien encounter. And so whatever's on the other side of this thing is incredibly attached to what we believe in and what we're doing. Now we got to take a break, but that's what I want you to think about before we come back, because that's where we're going to go from this. And also, do we have to be afraid of this stuff? Because that's what I'm seeing. And now you can't get away from polarity, but there's two choices here. People are embracing that this is real, or they're afraid of it, and they choose to stay afraid of it because it's just too freaky. They don't want to understand it. But why not embrace it? I'm Joe Roop. This is Lighting the Void. We do got to take a break. Don't forget, after the program tonight, the Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable will be on. And tomorrow night on the program, Jason Augustus Newcomb is going to come to us and talk to us about the new hermetics and understanding how to tap into the system. And his system is kind of cool because he's merged a new system into, I guess, an old magical system, which helps us hack into the system. But I'll let him explain that to you, so make sure you come tomorrow night. We'll be right back.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Hey, it's Grace. Can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
Magic, the occult, history, health, news. These are just a few subjects discussed on my radio broadcast, The Secret Teachings. I offer unique and objective perspectives on new and old subjects alike, while welcoming guests and presenting my own research with no filter. Visit my website for more information and to subscribe to my archive at www.thesecretteachings.info. And find me on The Fringe FM live Monday through Friday, midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM.
Hi, this is Sammy. Join us in the Deep South as we're lighting the void with Joe Roop on The Fringe FM.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find us on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWERSAVE to get 10% off your first box. And as a special bonus, we will include our #1 rated appetite suppressant spray free with your order. Whatever your diet plans are, start with us at faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWERSAVE.
Yo-hoy there, Gigi here.
And I'm Cortana, and we're going to bring you on a journey through all things paranormal, metaphysical, ufology, and even psychedelic. On our show,
Shift Happens, live, Fridays at 7 p.m. Pacific. That's 10 p.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM.
And remember, kids, don't feed the Archons. Feed ducks instead.
Duck up.
All right, welcome back. We're going to continue our discussion about the hero's journey and hacking the system. Real quick, I want to say thank you all to have supported the show. Don't forget, we do need your support if you can. If you can't, please don't worry about it. Do what you got to do for you. But if you can go to lightingthevoid.com, and there is a donate button there. There's also the Amazon portal, and you can buy a t-shirt as well. Now, before we get on to the hero's journey here, I want to read this message that I received from Courtney. It says, first of all, I'd like to thank you for your wonderful thought-provoking, truth-seeking radio show. Well, thank you for saying that. Now, it means a lot to me because I've learned so much, not just about the topics you bring up, but it has helped me learn so much about myself and the experiences that I've had. Speaking of which, I'd love to get your insight on this. I've told the story to my friends before, but since I believe you're more knowledgeable than an average Joe, and then she says, ha ha, I'd like to share my experiences, and if you'd like, or it's possible, connect more with you. I don't have any friends or family who is into spirituality as I am. Well, welcome to the club. He says, please hear me out before making these judgments. When I was about 14 or 15, I was into vampires. I did not like the blood sucking or anything. I love the idea that somebody could live long enough to see all the major life events that happened, such as 9/11, the building of this country, the age of rock and roll. I wanted to be able to live a long time so I could see the world change. So I had heard that you could make a deal with the devil. Now, I went out to my backyard under a full moon, looked up and asked, if the devil would turn me into a vampire so I could see all the world changes. I didn't want to drink blood or hurt people or anything. I also said that I wasn't willing to, sacrifice or do anything bad for this favor. After that, I don't know how long, but I was home alone one night and fell asleep in the living room on the floor. I don't know why I woke up, but I woke up and noticed it was like between 3 and 4. The witching hour. I saw a movie vampire named, what is that? Lestat? I guess I saw a movie vampire named Lestat sitting in the couch arm next to me. Maybe that's a typo. Maybe she's saying she saw a vampire sitting on the couch next to her. He said everything was all right and that I could go to sleep now. And I followed him down the hallway to my room. I specifically remember watching him walk into my dad's room next door, walk into the bathroom, and turn the light on. I heard and saw the light come on. I guess she heard the flicker of the light. Then I laid in my bed and fell asleep. I tried to verify with my dad later because I only lived with him, and he said he hadn't come home yet at the time. After that, I was watching TV in the living room one day, and I turned over my right shoulder and saw a shadow man with what I imagined was a leather-tight jacket and a bowler hat or something on his head. He also had on a leash a Doberman. The dog shadow just seemed that way. I have no way of knowing, and then I looked away and looked back, and he was gone. I was slightly scared because of the shock, but not really scared. The next time I saw him, I was sitting in the passenger seat of my dad's truck. Dad was getting air for the tire behind me, and I looked up and glanced out the window, and the shadow man was right there, and that was freaky. I glanced away and looked back, and he was gone. I looked out the window and couldn't see him, like, walking away, or I could see him walking away, and my dad was on my side of the truck messing with the tire pump thing. After that, I got scared because I had heard that shadow people were bad, so I freaked myself out. Even though I never felt negative vibes from the man. I asked and prayed to God to cleanse the house and to make the man go away. And I've never seen a shadow person since then. But I've seen an apparition of a dead person before. Anyways, I know you have a friend. I know you have friend and more knowledge than me, I guess. So if you could share your thoughts, I'd greatly appreciate it. So thank you. I also have many questions concerning these experiences in my life. Was the movie character real, or did I dream him up? What about making sure it was a real person by listening for the sounds and lights? Why wasn't I scared? Should I have been? What about the shadow guy and his dog? Well, let's go through that, right? So you asked for, first of all, and I'm not judging you, but making the deal with the devil is a real thing. And before people say, "Oh God, this girl made a deal with the devil," people have been making pacts with spirits for a very long time, and they've gone by many different names way before the 12th century decided to call Lucifer Satan. And certain spirit names you could make pacts with to make deals with. I think, and in fact, in Abramelin and the Mage, the four kings of hell you could make deals with, which is Lucifer, Leviathan, Satan, and Belial. So I think maybe you invoked, but see, there's a whole bunch of spirits underneath them too. So you probably invoked whatever spirit form, if you want to think about that in that form or fashion, whatever spirit form that was closest to a vampire, you probably invoked it somehow. Whatever the name of that thing is. And they all have different forms. If you read some of these magical texts, they appear as different things. Some of them appear as dogs, some of them appear as humans, but you'll always see the symbols of them with them. I think there is one that's actually like a Doberman. Kind of crazy. But anyways, so your questions, right? First of all, if I've had that kind of I've had that experience myself. I've never made any deals, but there are people that make deals, like the rappers, Bone Thugs and Harmony. They talk about making pacts. There's a ritual called the Crossroads Ritual that is old as dirt, and a lot of artists, black magicians, and you can look this up for yourself, have used this ritual. They go to and I'm not, please don't do this unless you really want to, but they go to any crossroads that they can find, which what the crossroads, that's just a symbol. If you want to look at it that way, it's a symbol of a crossroads. And so you're speaking to that other realm, this other realm that we don't really know what it is, right? And they would call upon certain spirits. Some people called upon Lucifer. Some people called upon, I think there was a voodoo Haitian spirit named Papa something. I forget his name. But many people like Bob Dylan, all these people say that they've made deals with the devil or whatever at the crossroads. So it's a crossroads ritual. Just look into that. That's been going on forever. But what I think you did was you invoked the thought form. That's what it is. You invoked the thought form, so it's either one or two things, I think. This is based on my experience, though. You invoked a thought form or elemental that had something to do with what you were wanting, or I highly doubt you actually invoked a real spirit with a real name and all that. So it's probably a thought form or elemental. That's why it was so easy to get away from you, just by doing a prayer. Was the movie character real, or did I dream him up? Well, I would ask you, and I've said these same questions to certain guests on the show, like, what is real? What is reality? We think this is reality, but that other realm could be reality. So what is reality, right? If you had the experience, if you saw that thing, then in your reality, that thing was real. And I would tell you that it's real because you saw it. I'm not going to just discount it. Why weren't you scared? Well, obviously that thing wasn't there to hurt you. And see, this is what I was saying, like, I think we need to look into, as this has been hidden from us, is the human potential. And where I struggle inside myself was it hidden from us for a good reason? Because when you read all the old books, it says that these things were hidden from the profane because they didn't want to give loaded weapons to people that didn't understand certain things. But the knowledge was never released. I mean, even the contemporary Masonic schools you go to now, you'd be real lucky to learn any knowledge there. So you have to study magic to learn about any of this stuff. Let's see. What was the next question? Was the movie character real, or did I dream him up? Well, I think what you did is you invoked something that came into this reality. I remember a time that I went, it was the exact same time, by the way. It was between 3 and 4 o'clock. That's when the weird stuff happens, doesn't it? And I left the studio and went into the house. And I was sitting on the couch, and my dad was here, and I thought that he was wearing, he always wore painter's whites because he's a painter. So he was always, most of the time when I seen my dad, he was wearing white. And I was thinking about him. If I remember this right, I don't know what I was thinking about, but I was thinking about Dad. And I seen a character out of the corner of my eye walk from the hallway into the bathroom, because we have an open hallway that's open to the living room. It's kind of hard to explain, but you can see the hallway behind it. And I saw it walk, and I said, "Hey, what are you doing up so late?" That's how real it looked, because I was like, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing up so late?" And then when I walked in the hallway and saw nothing or nobody was there, Dad wasn't even here. It freaked me out. Like my heart started beating real fast. So I think that you invoked that thing from the other realm because you used your emotions. It's something that you visualized happening and you really wanted it to happen, and it came through. But putting a name on it or telling you if it was real, I would say it was real, but not in the sense that a lot of people call reality, like just your five senses type reality. This is a very complicated subject and very hard to explain, so I apologize if I'm rambling. But if you want to know about this stuff, I would say if you want to understand the fundamentals of it a little bit more, I would look into Carl Jung's Red Book, which was supposedly a forbidden book, right? What about me making sure it was a real person by listening for the sounds and lights? I don't know about that. So maybe you were aware that, hey, if I listen to the sounds and I listen to the lights, I'll know it's real. Why wasn't you scared? We already answered that one. Should I have been? No. If you're not scared, then there's no point in you being scared already. What about the shadow guy and his dog? Okay. Now, I don't want to freak you out about this, but there is a real spirit that's related to this, and I don't know the name of it or how to pronounce it, and I'm not going to say the name, but if you go to and watch that movie, A Dark Song, where they go to this house, and it's really freaky because they go to this house and they do the Abramelin ritual, and they're trying to invoke their holy guardian angel, but in order to do that, you have to go through barriers of what they call the threshold and demons and all this stuff. And a black shadowy figure with a black Doberman is in that movie. So go check that out. I think that might have been actually been a spirit that is probably governs whatever you were tapping into. So if you look into these texts, these spirits are in hierarchies. They've certain things govern certain demons, and those demons govern demons below them, and then it's blah, you might have ran into one of those. That's all I'm saying. Not sure. Were they going to help me live longer or introduce me to the spirit realm? That I do not know. So many questions, and I don't have any answers. Well, I don't either. But if you dig enough, you'll find people that do. And what I mean by that is masters that have either alive or they're living on the earth now or have lived on the earth. And I bring this guy up a lot. His name was Daskalos, was Dr. Stylianos Ateshlis. I really think you guys should look into this. Or Daniel Joseph, who teaches what he left behind. But also, Dr. Stylianos Ateshlis did teach the Theosophical Society, and the magicians learned a lot of stuff from Blavatsky's Theosophy, and so there's the chain in that. So you can actually get a couple of books from this guy, this is a real treasure. Now, he's kind of a Christian mystic, but the truth that he talk about in here, you can test this stuff out for you in your life and see that it's real. And one of the books is called The Esoteric Teachings by Dr. Stylianos Ateshlis. And I will just tell you some indexes that are in this book, just so you can understand what I'm talking about here. So, of course, he opens up, everybody's got the big question about absolute beingness, what Christ really is. He talks about the Christ Logos, talks about the Holy Spirit and humanity, the archangelic orders, mind and etheric vitality. That's a fascinating one, too. Creation, space, place, and time. All the different worlds that we live in, the light and the super light, how the human body is constructed. And here's the thing that got me. The etheric double. I've had one etheric experience, I think, that people call when you're in your etheric astral body, which is like the body that you have now. And when you come out, you are in a place that's realer or more realer. That's not even real. More real and more vivid than this world. It's much more alive, it feels like, than this world. And you can fly, too. He calls that your etheric double. The three bodies that we have and elementals. And so to your question, and of course there's other stuff like the subconscious, the law of cause and effect. It's funny, even Dr. Stylianos Ateshlis is talking about hermetics in here. The Traveler of Dreams, etc. This is a good book. This is not theory. This is real stuff here, okay? But when it comes to your experience, Courtney, I would say it was definitely elementals. But something that a lot of people run into are these black shadowy figures, and I don't know if they are actually, God, they're so scary, aren't they? Because you see them and they just freak you out. Like, I want you guys to watch this, and if you get scared easy, don't watch it alone, okay? But it's called A Dark Song, and it's about two magicians that go on this journey through a real ritual that's called Abramelin the Mage. So you can look that up, too, at Sacred Text. I wouldn't start reading off all the spirit names and stuff, but you can. And I remember this scene in that movie where she's sitting on the couch and she's reading, and she's probably invoking spirits via a book, because in those old rituals, you didn't have to invoke spirits by simply saying them out loud. You could actually write them down, write the names, and invoke them too. And she looked up, oh my God, and it freaks me out thinking about it because I've seen this before. And she looked up in this room that was only lit by her candlelights, and she only had the candlelights around her book that she was writing on. And so there was this old Ottomans type chair across from her with a coat hung up on it. So when you looked at the chair, it kind of looked like something was sitting there, but not really. And all of you know what I'm talking about if you stared at something in the dark. Well, she looked up at it again, and there was this black figure just sitting there smoking a cigarette. Just solid black, smoking a cigarette, and it was making this weird rumbling, growling noise, right? And you could see the terror that filled her, because I've seen this stuff too. You know, my son's seen them. Black, shadowy figures you can't really explain, but you don't really know if it's all in your mind. But the more you think about it, it really wasn't. And this thing's, the only thing you can see is the blackness and the end of the cigarette, the cherry. And you could see it just barely light up, as if the cherry would glow a little bit louder, you know, when it was inhaling. And so she got the guts up enough, which most of us do, because when we get in that situation, it's fight or flight. We don't just want to sit there and look at it because it's too horrifying. So she got the guts enough to pick up the candles and walk over to the chair so she could light up the chair and see what it looks like. And this thing looked like somebody sitting there smoking a real cigarette, until she stuck the candles in the chair, and then it was the coat and the thing was gone. Now, the funny thing is the cigarette was actually lit and in the ashtray. Okay. Now, what does that represent? Sometimes these things in this inner realm that Carl Jung describes, sometimes I think that they bleed through, and what occultists and magicians have learned how to do is through symbolism and invocations and alternate states of consciousness, they're able to get these things to bleed through. Just like when we were younger and we were kids, when we would get so full of fear laying in our beds, or we would get really scared and look at something in the darkness, when the adrenaline pumped and our emotions got in on that thought, whatever we were thinking about, it would bleed through, and we would kind of manifest it for a second into this reality. So really, I think that what we could possibly be doing in that situation is manifesting things, which all they really are is elementals. So it's almost like doesn't mean they're not real, because they're definitely there. And I had this discussion with Ryan Gable, and I don't know if he is where he's at. Let me see if he'll come on and talk about. I really want to talk about this because it's important. Can you talk about the black shadows? So the reason why I think some people see these things is because from the time they were young, they invoked these things somehow. I don't know how. And from then on in the rest of your life, anytime you get scared, you see them again. Now, I've literally laid on the couch before, and I've told Ryan about this, where I was, I don't know why, I just had this feeling something was standing behind me, and I don't remember being afraid or anything about it, but I rolled over, and again, it was dark, and I was at my friend's house, and we're in a trailer, and this trailer, it's not like a trailer in the country, you know. No, this is a big double-wide, really nice trailer. It's bigger than most houses, and so you could see in the living room, you could see all the way across. And so that's the only reason why I could see some, you know, a little bit in the darkness. My eyes adjusted, and so I could kind of see the things in the living room, the chair, the bar, all kinds of stuff. So I rolled over and faced the couch, where the couch is up against the wall. And I felt like, man, something is, you know how you get that creepy feeling like something is behind me, man, you know, and I was in my 20s, so it's not like I was a little kid. And I rolled back over, and this time I didn't see anything. I saw nothing except this black thing in my face, and I couldn't see anything. My eyes were totally adjusted, so I should have been able to see the living room and the kitchen and all the way down the hall. Nothing, man. Just like somebody had taken black paint and just threw it in my eyes. And I was like, oh, God, it's back. That's the thought I had for some reason, like it's back, you know. And so I reached back and was kind of stretching my arm back behind my back, trying to find the light to turn it on. Because I knew if I turned the light on, because this is like this trigger that I had when I was a little kid. I knew if I turned the light on, this some bitch would go away. And so my heart's starting to pump now because I don't know what the hell this thing is, and it's freaking me out. I reach back, I turn the light on, whew, it's gone. Now that's the same feeling I got when I saw that movie, A Dark Song, when she saw that. Now I've seen those bastards quite a few times in my life. And I always wondered if it was in my mind. Well, I even had my son come on the show to discuss that. And one day he was outside crying, and I just opened the door, and he's standing by the, we've got one of those magnolia trees in the front yard, and he's standing by this thing, just crying. And I'm like, what's wrong? What's going on? He said, there's a shadow, something like a black shadowy man standing over there looking at me. And I said, no, he's not over there, son. Look at me. And now I understand why maybe my dad told me it was in my imagination. Right? Because you don't want him to be afraid. And I knew that it might be real, but I told him, it's not over there, son. Look at me. And then he looked at me, and I said, no, it's not there. And I was doing it for protection, but I kind of believed it was there. But I remember telling him, it's not there. Don't worry about anything. It's okay. And now look back over there. It's all this stuff's starting to come back to me now a little bit. But he looked back, and I said, is it there? He said, no, it's gone. So I think when Laird Scranton and I were talking about this codependent relationship, it doesn't mean these things aren't real. I think they're definitely real. It's just we're learning how to speak to them. And you'd have to read up on, I guess, maybe some Carl Jung and stuff to understand this a little bit better. But we're halfway through the program. We're going to take a break here. So restroom break, whatever, grab a drink of water, whatever you got to do. I'll be right here waiting when you get back. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back, guys.
This is Elle. I listen to Lighting the Void because it's interactive radio with good content, interesting guests, and a humble host, sharing his journey through the esoteric. Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for having us along for the ride.
Thank you so much for a delightful evening. Well, I got a lot of ground to cover.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast where we tell real paranormal experiences of people from around the world. And we also conduct interviews with authors, investigators, psychics, and mediums. Real people, real stories, real fear. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM. See you then.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up.
standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Follow The Fringe FM on Facebook and Twitter at The Fringe FM. Start your evenings with The Fringe FM long before those other shows get started. Exclusively live on The Fringe FM, hear the Quantum Hologram Matrix with the Reverend John Polk, Tuesdays at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. And our newest show, Sci-Spy Radio with Suzanne Ross, Wednesdays at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. Then stay up, because we're burning the midnight oil well into the morning hour. The truth is out there, and so are we. Lock it in, The Fringe FM.
All right, welcome back. So, Project Blue Book is out on the History Channel with that guy, I don't know who his name is, but he played in Game of Thrones, who is playing the role of Dr. J. Allen Hynek. And I you know what's funny about that is, I know this is hard to believe, but I watched the episode this morning. It was like 6 a.m. I looked on the DVR on the satellite, and it had already recorded the first episode, and I have no idea how that happened, because it came out today. I think it just aired, or it just went off, or it's still on. I don't know, but I know it was supposed to come on today. Now, I hope that this catches the attention of the world a little bit, because December 17th of 2000, or December of 2017 really didn't catch anybody's attention. So maybe this will, but I know they're going to add some fluff to it. But I watched it this morning, and I'm not going to give you any spoilers, I guess, but I would highly recommend watching it. It's going to be a great series. And Catalina talks about that in the chat room. Yeah, so there are more shows about this stuff now, and I think that Hollywood is picking up, definitely. Hollywood's picking up on it. They're picking up on the alien stuff. They're picking up on the magic stuff. So you're going to see a lot of more shows like that. I don't want to jump on every show and think it's some grand conspiracy behind it, but I'm glad that they're doing it, because they're really fun. It's really cool to watch them. So anyways, I was trying to talk about the shadow being experience that we had. And tonight's theme for this broadcast is the hero's journey and hacking the system. And do we embrace these teachings? Do we embrace the teachings of the occult and the esoteric so we can learn how to hack the system? Some of us are afraid to go that route. So if you're afraid to go that route, then I would say look into things like Thomas Campbell and Dr. Dean Radin, because there's methods there. William Buellman, who we're more than likely, hopefully, going to have back on the show, have other ways to explore consciousness. But regardless, I'm just telling you, no matter which way you go, you can go down the occult magic way, you can go down the mystic way, or even the scientific consciousness exploration route. No matter which route you go, you're going to run into things that scare you. You're going to run into things like this. And I've talked to all three. And I got to tell you that after talking to all three, the only one that's given me an answer to what these things are, I mean, the scientists have given me answers like, it's just a part of consciousness. It's a projection. And the magicians have given me answers like, it's elementals, or it's something that you've created, or it's an actual spirit that'll do your bidding because you know its name, and both work. Now, that just doesn't add up. My brain, I cannot wrap my brain around that, but I can wrap it around the fact that there's something there to it. And when we use the word real, is it real? That word is getting almost like the word love or truth. I don't think we understand reality the way we think we do, the way we think it is. God, I could ramble about that all night, but I don't want to. So what I mean by embracing this, to be afraid of it, to know that there's something lying underneath all of this, do we embrace it or do we run from it? And, there's Ryan, I think. Ryan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. I was talking earlier, I wanted to bring you on because I get to rambling when I talk about this stuff. So I was talking about those shadow beings. You've encountered these things too, right? Because we had a listener send us a message about these things, and I'm trying to help answer the question, but I can't put my finger on if it's what the hell it really is. But these black, shadowy type beings, I don't even know if you want to talk about this. I just know that I've talked to you about it.
Yeah, and I've talked about it on my show before, too,
Okay,
in the
good.
Secret Teachings.
So
when you say shadow form, what do you mean exactly? Can you paint me a picture?
Well, they don't look like, they're not really in the shape of a man. I guess sometimes they are, right? Sometimes they're in the shape of a man, but a lot of times they're just blackness or black blobs or shadows, you know?
Kind of misty almost?
Right. Like, I've even called them black Rorschach symbols. I don't want to put a name on it, but that's what they are, like little black clouds sometimes, or big black clouds.
Yeah, I like that. They are kind of like Rorschach symbols.
Did you feel, well, let me ask you this question. Do you feel like that it was something outside of you or something that you brought to yourself?
I've had several experiences, but not so many that I would try to get a TV deal or a book deal to tell that story.
Uh-huh.
I had an experience, if you know what I mean. I've had an experience when I was much, much younger, probably, I do not know what age I was, but probably around 10, 11, something like that. And what I saw in the room did take the form of a looked physical anyway, physical humanoid, probably, much, much taller than me at the time. Of course, I was tiny, but I remember that it was, from reference with how big the door frame was, it was taller than the door, and it was probably maybe around 6.5 to 7 feet tall, so it was really tall, but it didn't have a face. It was all black, so it was a very, very distinct shadow, and it had the black hat on. Now, I know that a lot of people listening probably think, well, that's the Hat Man, and I'd agree with you. That probably was the Hat Man, but I didn't know that when I was 10 or 11 years old. All I knew was I was sleeping at my great-grandma's house. My grandma, her daughter, my grandma had lived in that room when she was a kid. And when I told my mom the next morning what I had seen, we were up there at my great-grandma's house on vacation. And when I told my mom what I had seen, my mom kind of downplayed it, not to scare me, but I wasn't scared. I just wanted to know what it was. And I remember my grandma sort of describing, and she wasn't implanting this in my head. I remember it vividly, like I'm sitting here right now. And I remember my grandma explaining to me what she had seen when she was a kid in that room, and she described it exactly to every little tiny detail. And I had honestly forgotten entirely about that story and all of the other cases, which were very few experiences I had as I got older. And then I was interviewing Nick Redfern, and I talked to him after a show, and we were talking, this was back in like 2016, it was like 2016, and I said I was going to go to Contact in the Desert for the first year, and he said, oh, I'm going to be there, come say hi. So I went and talked to him, and he gave me his book on the Men in Black. So I took that, and I ended up reading it a few months later, and I came across a story in there. It was a compilation of all of these different stories relating to mostly Men in Black or shadow beings and things like that.
Yeah.
And I was reading through the book, Joe, and I got to this one section. It was very small, and I mean, I could have very easily just sort of read over it and not think anything about it. But the story that this person told about their experience, it was just a brief paragraph, something they had sent him, and it was almost verbatim, with the exception of the setting of what I had experienced when I was a kid. So it reminded me of that experience. And so as I thought about that after I read it, I just sort of did a little mental notation and tried to remember the other things that I had seen. And I guess to answer your question and to progress the conversation forward, that was one of the first things that at least I can remember. And that took a humanoid shape, and it was definitely external. I didn't feel like it wanted to harm me, though. The next few times that I experienced things when I was a little bit older, about 19, 20 years old, there was a period of time into my early 20s that I was homeless, and I was staying in a place a friend of mine let me stay. They had an office, and that was actually, I know what year that was. That was 2012, 2013, because I started to write my first book, and that was the year that I was getting on dark matter for the first time, dark matter radio. And I remember laying in bed one time. I just had a blow-up mattress on the floor, and I felt something really, really dark, and it was totally external from my body, Joe. And it was not pleasant. I could hear.
Did you see it though?
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm trying. I want to think of how to explain this, both visually and auditorily. And I don't know if I can just explain it the best I can. And if someone listening has had this experience, they'll know what I mean. Maybe you can explain it better. I saw it, but I didn't visually see it. Like I could, let's say I could perceive it. I could sense it. So I sensed what it looked like, and I could sense what it was basically saying. I could kind of feel and hear thoughts, if you will. Again, I'm not being literal. I'm kind of speaking figuratively or symbolically. I'm not exactly sure how to explain it. But anyway, feeling and hearing this, all I can remember, and I can hear not a voice, but I can hear the thoughts in my own words in my head right now, still to this day. And the feeling that I got from it, that I can still feel today, was that it wanted to harm me. It wanted to do very bad, profane things to me. I mean, that could be my soul, whatever, but it couldn't do it. And it couldn't do it because there was something protecting me. And I'm not saying that that's an angel or an alien or whatever. It wasn't a magical spell, or I don't know, maybe it was. But my point is, though, this thing did not take a human form, humanoid form, or any type of form for that matter. And it felt really bad. So I had one experience where there was a humanoid, and that was kind of neutral, although I guess it was kind of scary as a kid. That was the proverbial Hat Man. I had another experience at about, 6 years ago. So I was 21 years old at that time. And at that point, I had not been able to visually see it, but I could sense it, and it was very negative. And then I also had another experience going back in time a little bit when I was in high school. And what I saw then was similar, but it didn't feel as evil, if you will. It just kind of felt dark, and it was very cold, and it was kind of soulless and hopeless and depraved. And that one I visually saw, and that was more of like a black, misty type of stuff that kind of circulated around the roof of the living room. And in all three of those cases, whether I was a child, in the time I was homeless, or in that case when I was in high school, visually I remember the setting. Like I remember looking back and seeing that Hat Man. I remember looking over and sensing this darkness around me. And I remember looking back down the hallway when I felt this cold air hit me and seeing that black hazy stuff. So I've seen them visually as humanoid and visually as a mist, and then some that I've just simply perceived.
Man, so this is happening to a lot of people. Because I get a lot of messages like these, like this one from Courtney, where she, the vampire thing, she wanted to be a vampire, right? Because she wanted to see all of this other stuff. So she wanted to be like,
drink blood, though, right?
Yeah, right. That's what she said. But she kind of wanted What you ought to look into is the story of Count Saint Germain. Some people think he's still alive right now, but I
Count
get that.
Chocula.
Right, I get that. Oh, by the way, while I have you on here for a little bit, did you know that this really happened? Okay, that a guy in Georgia broke into somebody's house. So a family left their house to go on vacation, and when they came back, they found somebody in their house that had broke in, and they told the guy to leave. And he refused to leave until he finished watching Bird Box on Netflix.
So he broke into their house
and he started watching their TV. Yep. He turned on Bird Box, and they were like, I said, call the cops. Dude, you got to leave. And he refused to leave. I didn't get all the details of the story, but that was the biggest thing, is that he refused to leave until he finished watching Bird Box.
That's funny. In a lot of states, I don't know if he'd had an opportunity to survive watching the rest of the movie. What state was that in?
Georgia.
I was in Georgia. Mm-hmm. I don't know what are their laws for breaking and entering in Georgia and gun laws. I mean, I know in Arizona or Idaho, when I talked to police when I was living there, they basically told me, just go ahead and shoot,
you can plug
and
them.
then we'll clean it up later. Just go ahead and empty the clip and reload.
I actually did a show on that about gun laws one time, but
you did.
Yeah, I played clips of 3 different scenarios where people shot breaking and enters, and there was. But anyways, I thought you'd like that since you did that show on the Bird Box,
Yeah.
But tonight we were talking about hacking the system and the hero's journey, and a lot of things have happened that I've noticed, and I brought up astrology because it only happens to a certain type of people, a certain type of, I guess you could say, charts where they're having to face things that they need to take care of, or things they didn't take care of are coming against them. But anyways, I don't even know why I thought about that, because it was Austin Coppock that made me think about it. And I've had all this stuff happen to me, and all this stuff happen to my friends. A lot of deaths have happened too, and I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are wanting to change, I guess, or quit. And I know the other network that used to belong to is kind of folding things up, and I know it's a personal deal, but to me, I think that's bad. I don't want people to give up. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want them to quit. If that makes any sense to you?
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I can appreciate that and understand where you're coming from, and I feel very similarly. I don't know if I've really formulated my thoughts on that particular subject yet, but I do understand what you're saying.
Like, we feel like when things happen to other people, well, another one bites the dust, or, if you don't take care of this happens. And we've always got these, I guess, judgments when we look at what's happening to other people, but we don't realize that it happens to us. It happens to everybody. And none of us are, I guess you could say, bulletproof. It's going to happen to you too. And so the reason why I study this stuff is because people have learned how to hack the system a little bit. I mean, we both know that magic is real in a kind of way. How do we explain how it's real and how it works? That's a whole nother thing. That's a very hard thing to do. But a lot of people want that explanation, including myself. They want to know why it works. How does it work? Well, how can somebody curse somebody? How could that even be real? Or how could you write something on a piece of paper, crumble it up, burn it during certain planetary alignments, and the stuff manifests? And
you know what?
I want to figure that out, and I don't know why. I'm obsessed with it.
There's something about magic. Of course, you have to define what that means. Some people think you mean Harry Potter magic. Some people think you mean, there is an element of, I don't know if I'd say divinity, but some form of divinity, if you will, in Harry Potter. There's some quote unquote truth in that, if you will. But you have to define magic as opposed to, stage magic, as opposed to Harry Potter, as opposed to whatever people's idea of magic might be. Like, I used to go to this cafe in Orlando, Florida. If anybody's in Orlando, I don't get paid by this place. I used to know the owners, but they sold the place. I don't know this place now, but I used to go there. It's a good place, so I'd recommend it still. It's called Dandelion. I used to go to this place, Joe, and they'd have these. They base their calendar on the moon, which our calendar is based on the moon. So they'd have certain events during certain phases of the moon.
Oh, that's
kind
cool.
of interesting. Yeah, it's kind of cool. But see, then the problem is this, and I don't think it's a problem for me or for you or for anybody else. It's a problem because it's kind of irritating, where people literally like go out during the full moon and they would do all kinds of weird things. Like it would get late at this place, like 9-10 o'clock, and they're getting ready to close down. And at that time, people would just go out there around the campfire and they'd start like hula hooping, and it was like they were on ecstasy. And
what?
I knew
At this Dandelion place they did this?
Yeah, they weren't on ecstasy. It was like they were on ecstasy.
Okay.
And, yeah, they were not. I mean, they were doing marijuana and stuff like that, I'm sure. But the point is, I knew two of these people that would go out there and dance. And if you're having fun dancing, I'm not criticizing that. Yeah. But it's the idea that like you can go dance under the moon with your boobs hanging out, and that somehow makes you a goddess, priestess, warrior. And so right. My point is, some people see magic that way, and I guess if it works for you, then it works for you. That's great, but I don't define magic that way. What I was going to say, what the point I was getting to, I know I digress and I go off topic, but magic is really incredible because it's almost like I want to see what you think about this, Joe, and anybody listening. If you have an opinion on this, it's almost like magic, unless you read and learn. Some people might need to practice, but unless you study it, no matter what you read and no matter what Joe tells you, no matter what I tell you, no matter what numerous other magicians might say, maybe just they're not magicians, they're just authors and researchers, it's almost like something you have to directly, it has to click with you. You have to be reading something and it just all of a sudden it makes sense. It's rarely something that can be conveyed verbally, and I think that the essence of magic, beyond those weird dances and beyond the Harry Potter world and stuff like that, is so truly divine and of God in a different sense than we would typically define God, that naturally it cannot be profaned unless one attempts to make it profane, which would be your black magic or Goetia. Otherwise, it preserves itself. So even if you read a book on magic, like I've said, I've been reading this 3 books on occult philosophy by Agrippa.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine is reading it too, and she said, let's read it kind of together, and we'll talk about it.
That's a good book for other people. I would say,
fantastic.
If you wanted to start learning about magic, I would say it's kind of hard to get going at first, but I guess it is hard to read, but it's a good book to kind of understand it, I think.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. I'd highly recommend it. And I guess that kind of is my point, because my friend, I messaged her and said, I'm like 45 pages in. And she said, I'm still stuck on chapter 1 and 2. I don't really understand. I don't really understand it. Can you explain it? So I kind of gave her just a very basic understanding of what Agrippa was saying. And she said, oh, that actually makes a lot more sense. So she started reading a little bit more, and she picked it up, and then she got to a point where she said, this is just kind of overwhelming. And I said, well, maybe it's not for you. Maybe you need to read some other books first. I mean, I had to read a ton of stuff before I could get to the point where I can sort of understand what the guy's saying, and then it makes sense. I guess the point is, I have 2 points. Not only are some things not for some people, like I read certain things and I can't comprehend them. I like Joseph Farrell. I can't read the guy's books. I've tried. I can't do it. It just doesn't click with me. The other point is, when you read something like that, whether you initially understand it or not, I think the information is still being, and I mean, we know the information is still being processed by the subconscious. And eventually, if you keep reading and you really want to study, you really want to learn, which is why you come to shows like Lighting the Void with Joe, or you come to the Secret Teachings, or you listen to Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis. You keep doing it, and the things that are meant for you at those times will click with you, and you'll get them. So it might take you a long time to comprehend certain things. Like it took me almost 6 years to understand the Tree of Life and the Kabbalah, but now I understand it, and it didn't come from reading a book on it. It just came from, in passing, reading one author's comments on it, and the way that he explained it changed my perspective so that I understood it.
So I did this analogy earlier where, like, okay, nature and the fundamental thing of reality was whatever that's lying underneath, whatever that system that Laird was talking about, that behind that, we could look at that as the binary system in a computer. And then you could look at the computer screen, whatever's being displayed, as reality. Magic would be like tapping into the code system, like C++, or maybe you don't want to use C++, so use C++, or tapping into the back end of a website. You know, kind of. I guess that's a bad analogy. That's why it's so hard to explain, I think.
Well, again, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's almost like magic preserves itself. It's hard to explain, and it's hard to express something that's so, in a lot of ways, is so immaterial with material expression, if you will.
I think the reason why I talk about it a lot is because I want. So we're at a time now where the human potential is something far more than people trying to become, I guess, cyborgs. What I'm talking about is using methods of consciousness and methods of magic or mysticism to tap into the system, to hack this system a little bit to help you with your hero's journey. So Nick Farrell did a pretty good presentation in Europe somewhere about magic, where he said, you know, like New Agers will look at a poor person that's on the street begging for food and saying that person caused that to happen in their reality, right? Kind of like everything they think about happens in their reality. So they caused that to happen. You see what I mean? Or if they got a lot of stuff and the money and everything, well, that's because they caused that to happen based on what they think and feel.
I don't fully believe that.
No. So what he said is the way a magician looks at it is that person is in a very hard time in their story, like the hero in the story or the hero's journey. That person is at a very hard time in their journey or in their story. I wonder if I could help that person, right? And if that's something I can understand a little bit more, because the magician knows how to hack the system or speak to whatever's behind the subconscious or the underworld or whatever the hell you want to call it, and help to manifest certain things. But the thing about it is good magicians know, like, it either works or it doesn't, you know, but we're going to try. And if it works, then we write it down and we document it. We also document the stuff that don't work.
The reason that I don't believe that, and it's not that I dismiss the idea, it's that thinking about everybody putting themselves in their current position, however you might express that and believe that, kind of seems like we create these very rock solid existences where, Joe, you are who you are, you're making that. And I am.
You talking about the New Age look at it or the magicians look at it? Or
dude, to be honest with you, I don't know what the hell people believe anymore. I can't. I
do. I know the New Age thing is they created that.
Is that what they think?
Yeah, they created that based on their own negativity. And yeah, look, being negative and positive has something to do with what happens in your life. Absolutely. But there are certain other circumstances that you just get blindsided by, man.
Yep. Yeah, right. And here's an M. Night Shyamalan twist for you. I might define positivity different than you define positivity, so your positivity might be very negative to me.
Yeah, absolutely. We got Dan from Chicago on the line. What's going on, Dan?
Hey, not too much, guys. How are you two doing?
Pretty good.
Good,
just
Dan.
Trying to talk about the hero's journey and hacking the system. Do you got something you want to say, question, or chime in on?
I just had a little thought that came when I was listening to you guys talk kind of about the negative side of occultism or like the dark magic or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little thing that I've been thinking that I noticed. Like, so I mentioned that I just started a new podcast, and so I'm kind of on social media now, interacting with the magical occult community in a way that I never would before, because I'm not really a social media person.
I understand.
And it's kind of rubbing me the wrong way, because if you just make like a hashtag, like hashtag occult or something to promote yourself, or just to try to connect with other people, or just get your stuff seen, it's like all of a sudden all the people that are following me are like Satan 666, like hell child.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah,
there you go.
all of these people are like now in my sphere, and I want to be like, I don't want to associate with that, and I also want to be open-minded enough, like, okay, yeah, you've got your point of view, but there's just this overwhelmingly big amount of people out there that I'm noticing that are just like really idiotic with claiming that they're witches or claiming that they're into the occult, but just being straight up like satanic for the sake of just being edgy or whatever. But some of these, it's just eye-opening to be like, okay, well, if I do hashtag occult, hashtag magic, that's putting me in the sphere of these people that are pretty pathetic on the surface, at least to me.
I get friend requests on Facebook, all the time from people that have like satanic symbology on it. Like, they want, and I call it satanic because that's what we know it as, right? If you got 666 doesn't necessarily mean the devil. It's the mark of the beast, right? So I get this stuff all of the time, and I know exactly what you're talking about. But I want you to imagine an occultist that understands the dark side of magic in a higher way, kind of like Daskalos did. I wouldn't really call him an occultist, but the way he talked about demons were like, look, they're just demons. They don't want to be summoned. They don't want to be summoned to begin with. They are what they are. And he kind of felt sorry for them. You know, he even talked about how he had one in his front yard or something, but he never really messed with it. So he had a higher perspective of looking at these things. But the kind of people that you're being friends with, I guess, I know exactly what you're talking about. They're sending you friend requests and they're trying to talk to you about this, are not really trying to look at the dark side of things from a higher, unpolarized perspective or understand why this is happening. It's all about image to them. I even get friend requests from, like, what do you call this? The Juggalo family, where insane clown posse type people all the time, you know? And I'm like, I don't have nothing to do with them. Why are they sending me friend requests?
People that befriend you, that's like, their usernames like Cloven Hoof 666, Hail Satan.
yeah. Right.
Or like, Satan is my daddy 666, like the teen girls that are like goths that have like, I don't know, man. It's like, no wonder we have such a bad rap. And it's like, I'm kind of putting myself on the chopping block by openly talking about this stuff. And maybe if people are like skeptical and they see who the hell is following and commenting, it's like, please don't put me in the same box with these people. It's just like, I never knew they were all out there in such big numbers.
Joe, you were saying that last night about, and obviously we've discussed this several times on my show too, The Secret Teachings, is that if you go to YouTube's probably the most common place you'll find this. You go to YouTube and you could literally do a video of just the stupidest thing. You could have a cat rollerblading through your house.
All you got to do is put the word Satan or Illuminati in it, and it's going to get a million views.
Illuminati cat rollerblades through house, and there's a triangle in the background. That means that the Illuminati is controlling the cat on the skates. And that would get a million hits. Or you could sit down and you could do like a 2 or 3 hour presentation, the most amazing presentation on any subject, and just call it, lecture on philosophy, and you get like 6 hits, and then it'll get flagged on YouTube and taken down.
So, Dan, you're starting to understand a little bit of what a lot of the magicians, let's say like Israel Regardie or even some modern day magicians, are going through. This is why Israel Regardie, I believe, stuck to the Golden Dawn teachings so much, because he saw the same types of things happening, because Aleister Crowley was developing a cult following, and there's a certain form of magic that has to do with consciousness. Just that's it. Raising your consciousness by invoking certain things and energies so you can have a higher understanding. And along the way, you can hack the system a little bit, or you can forecast for certain things, or you can divine with certain tools. but it wasn't. A lot of this stuff you're dealing with are people that want power and they want the image. And I don't necessarily think, I used to think that differently, but I don't necessarily think it's bad to hack the system and say, hey, I want a better life, right? But that's the thing with magic. It's like it's kind of like, well, we've talked about this before. It's like a knife with edges on it. You could use it to, I don't know, carve something or do good things with it, or you could use it to hurt people. And these people that are all about image I don't think they're understanding at all what they're getting into. But if you are in this, if you plan on doing this and doing a podcast about it, specifically about magic, that's why I don't talk specifically about it too much. Then yeah, you're going to get that a lot, man. You're just going to have to deal with it. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, I mean, I think even just like when the first few days of noticing it, even just seeing that imagery and just the way that these people are putting it out there on Instagram in like the most shallow surface level way ever, I almost wanted to like take a shower. It's like, these are my fans, like these, it just like kills my vibe. And I'm just like, it's tricky because you want support and you want to connect with people. And if people are listening to you in your brand new podcast, that's like step one. But if they have a profile that's like nothing but satanic Lucifer, blah, 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 it's like I almost want to just block them in a way, but I don't know if that's a good way to go.
What's the name of your podcast?
The podcast is called The Cosmic Keys Podcast, and it's on like iTunes and Spotify right now. But like I just, for example, like opened a Twitter account today, and it's like all this social media stuff. First of all, it's insane how many occult topics are being talked about so widespread across all the platforms.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like, I mean, it's like, is this underground? Is this fringe? Or is this like hot topic? Like, I can't really tell sometimes.
Yeah.
There's a difference. So this happens with a lot of people. If you look in the UFO community, there's people that are doing, it's the same way. It's the same thing. So you could take like Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers, for example. This guy's out in the field 24/7, it seems like, and he's got the awesome equipment. Most of the time what he's finding is military craft or secret stuff. Every now and then he'll catch a real UFO that's just fascinating. Really good work. I mean, he's really into his craft. But the field that he's in, he runs into people, and do I really need to give examples here of just outrageous stories about how some of this stuff, all of these are alien craft coming through portals and stargates and all this other stuff, when he's like, dude, that's what we're looking at right now is a light or something. You see what I mean? So there's people that,
yeah, Joe,
when they get into this field, they really study, then they really care about what they're doing. And there's other people that are just, I don't know if it's a fanaticism or they're just kind of crazy, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's really, like I remember on your show, Joe, you're like talking about the super soldiers, and I was like, why does he keep talking about that? But then when I get into the super soldier YouTube rabbit hole, it's like, I hate to judge, but these people are like just improvising their stories as they go along.
I don't buy it.
And sometimes there's like a 3-panel discussion with 3 super soldiers or whatever, and one person will tell one thing, and then the next person will one-up them and be like, well, no, the aliens I saw were 12 feet tall. Maybe I saw more than you. They're like trying to compete with their like delusional.
Have you guys seen the time travel videos?
But yeah, the time travel ones are pretty rough too. But
yeah, those are really bad.
I was talking about Joe Rogan last night. If y'all were listening to the show, he literally went out when he did that show with Duncan Trussell or whatever, which, by the way, I love Duncan Trussell because he understands the reality of some of this stuff, but he's also thrown into that group as well, right? And a lot of us that just happens, man. I'm just telling you. I understand what you're going through. But he actually asked people to make up stories about aliens and put them on camera, and they lied for him, and they just made stuff up off the top of their head. And then when it was over, they'd be like, did that sound good? You know, Like, he really busted him doing this stuff. One of the only people that did it. And so no wonder he looks at this community that way. And a lot of people in this community call him a shill, like he's working for the government. Well, if he was working for the government and disinfo agencies, I would say he's doing a good job. Not because of Joe Rogan is so good at being a shill. It's because we've got crazy fanatics telling crazy stories that aren't true. And as soon as we get rid of that, then we can get somewhere, you know? It's the same thing in the occult world. You're running into people that only care about image and I guess power. You know, you tell them, say, hey, why don't you round out your nature and maybe go through an older system of magic because you don't seem like you're ready for this or whatever. And the first thing they want to do is invoke Satan, you know, so
magic is money. Magic's like going on a diet. You know, diets mostly are built so that people can make money off of the craze, off the fads, selling a book, selling a pill. And that's what a lot of people want. They want to be able to go to the doctor, get surgery, and immediately they've lost 400 pounds. They want to be able to take a single pill and all of their problems are solved. And I know people that sincerely, literally think that if they take a diet pill, which could just be a sugar pill, that they can continue to eat a sheet cake every night and a bucket of ice cream, and that they will never have to worry about weight problems again. Nothing works like that. And magic doesn't work like that either. You can't just take a magic pill and you lose weight. You can't just take a magic pill and you no longer have to be a moral person or to practice certain sacred rites that are necessary in practices of magic, whether it's white or black. There's not like a single thing that you can do where the necessary things that you must do in life can be averted. Does that make sense?
I guess, yeah, it kind of does. Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But what I would challenge you to do this too, though, Dan, is when it comes to the dark stuff in magic, I wouldn't dismiss it, because really what you're trying to do is understand where that stuff comes from as well. And if you're going through like a traditional system of magic, make sure that you go through that first before you start. And this is just my opinion. There's other people that don't agree with me on this, so that you're well-rounded enough to be able to deal with those things when you do go to deal with those things. Because what you might find is you're going to have pity, or you're going to relate to something or understand your darker nature, just like you would if you had pity on a wild animal that would kill you. You know what I'm saying? So there are occultists out there and magicians that understand the dark side of magic from a different point of view, I guess, that you have to imagine what they're going through with this community.
Yeah, I think it's possible to explore that stuff if you're really being thoughtful about it. But
you don't have to, though.
It was really it's really eye-opening just seeing this stuff on social media, because you get the suggestions and then you see that these people have like thousands and thousands of followers, and it's a topic that keeps coming up, and you kind of talk about it, Ryan, on your show, is sort of like the social justice warrior type people.
Oh God.
And it's like that's being talked about. The only reason that people are talking about witches and witchcraft and magic is because there's like a radical feminist or like trans or whatever like side
the witchy people,
witchcraft. And they're saying if you're witchy, then therefore you're like a social justice person, or so if you're a radical feminist, then magic is suddenly okay. And it's like there's all of this stuff out there now. It's like, holy crap! I had no idea it was such a thing. But now that I'm
Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was actually. It's funny he brings that up. I was going to mention that to you, Dan. I was going to ask you actually if you noticed that in social media, if you've noticed that women in particular. I'm not criticizing witches. Don't put a hex on me. I already got a curse on me, I think. But I think a lot of witches aren't. I mean, obviously, a lot of witches aren't witches. They take on this name like they're witchy. A lot of young girls do that, and they like paint their eyelids black, and they put on like a pentagram ring, and they wear really high black stockings, and they think that they're communicating with like demons or something. Like people. My point is that like it's really common for women now, especially on social media. as much as other people use those symbols you talked about, a lot of people like to portray themselves as witchy. It's like really, really popular today to do that.
Yeah,
have you noticed a lot of that?
It's like teen Vogue and stuff is like 5 steps to like hex your enemies or something. Like,
yes,
just pick three ingredients up.
I would challenge you not to focus on that because you're always going to have, if you're studying this stuff, you're always going to have, and it's always been in this community, you're always going to have people that are doing those types of things. If you really study this stuff, you're going to learn that it's a very lonely thing. Like, it's a lonely path. And one day you might be able to set an example. And even when you do that, let's say even if you become like Dan, you become the next Gordon Wyatt or something like that, right? And you've got a podcast and you're talking about these things, you're still going to have these people in the community that are going to do these things. It's still going to be in the UFO community. You're still going to have people in the conspiracy movement that aren't really studying conspiracy at all. They think everything's a conspiracy. It's so weird. I know it's there, but I don't know if it's a fight worth. I don't even know if it's worth a fight. You know what I mean? That's something you'll have to ask yourself.
Yeah, totally. And like before, I think it's just the act of putting yourself out there, which you two have plenty of experience with. Like before, I was doing this stuff privately. Nobody knew. Nobody had any idea. And now I'm like, my voice is out there. I'm talking about things. And it's like the whole monolith of like social media. It's a lot for the human psyche to understand. Like, we're not used to seeing thousands of people in a clique, you know. We're used to being in face-to-face communities. And now I'm like, I just kind of wanted to vent because you two are probably some of the few people that I could vent it to, but it's like, it's just a lot to absorb when suddenly you're wired in with all these people through the internet, and it's almost like, how do I protect myself from intrusion of these just vibes that I really don't like it, you know.
Yeah, I
it's
understand.
like if you were to go out in public and you could read people's minds, like you could hear people's thoughts. That's what going to social media is like, and you start to realize, whoa, this is kind of creepy and scary.
But everybody's on their own journey, though, too. Like I said, everybody's unique. Everybody is they're either going to learn from what they've done or they're not, right? And that's what I was talking about tonight. If you're going to use this stuff, mysticism or magic or whatever, to hack the system to understand the journey that you're on and maybe see some things that are coming. For instance, let's say that you did a bad business deal, right, Dan? Or you were doing a business deal and you had people involved with this business. Well, if you're an occultist or you've studied a little bit of magic, you can pull up an astrology chart and know what time you're supposed to launch certain things for your business, or you can do divination to figure out if certain people need to be there or not, and kind of have a better intuition with the tools that you have at your disposal to figure out what to do. And really what you're doing is tapping into the human potential that taps into that threshold between the conscious and the unconscious, which I believe is not really all in the brain. I believe both are real. And that's the cool part about it. And so in my mind, getting caught up with this other stuff keeps you from helping the people that really do want help or really want to figure out something, you know?
It was very well explained.
Yeah,
Joe.
totally.
You guys see the story about all those witches that want to hex Donald Trump and anybody that they don't like?
Yeah, that's old hat news right there. They're binding Trump. Yeah, I believe that was run by Michael. Forget his last name, but that was.
There've been a couple of those. One was recent though. The one was originally, I think, when he was elected, and then the other one was a recent story about that.
Yeah, binding his followers and all this stuff. Yeah, so
I think Trump's got some occultists working for him.
I hope he does, because he scares me.
He had a speech tonight right when Mercury squares Mars. He's like, he does. It seems like things line up astrologically.
Yeah, I'm sure every president, prime minister, I'm sure congressmen, senators. I mean, I knew a girl, her dad was just somebody who was a minor guy on the stock market, and he said, like, most of the people he works with, they all consult astrologers.
Yeah, but there's something about him to me that's incredibly fake too, because like that book, The Art of the Deal, and that's what everybody tells. You ever read Art of the Deal? Trump, he's smart. He ain't stupid, right? I said, have you ever watched or listened to the guy that helped write that book, that put that book together for him, that talked about how it was a book of lies? That 70% of those deals that were winners were actually losers, but they purposefully went in there and reversed everything so that he could sell the book and market it. But he's had way more than 50%. I would say 70% of failures with all of his deals, but they wrote it backwards in the book to market it. And the guy admitted it. The guy that wrote the book admitted it. And that's pretty scary. Yeah, that guy's running our country. He's the best.
Anything related to Donald Trump, I don't think much about it.
So yeah, right. Is that a fight worth your energy?
Hell, not for me. And that's the thing. Like, I create a Twitter account, and it's like I'm following these normal people, these esoteric occult people, like big names, and they're retweeting these like shitters, like these like
that's all right.
Condescending anti-Trump tweets. It's like, this is what I got to deal with just by having a Twitter. I've got to think about this again. I thought I was done with that. So
no. You never had a Twitter before this. This is the first time you've had Twitter?
I had Twitter back in like 2010. But I mean, from like the Trump election in 2016, I used to go on Facebook a lot to connect with like the artistic community I'm a part of, and I had to cut myself off that because everything was political. And I went through a really like
particular.
I went through a sort of mental breakdown close to after he was elected. Not because it was specifically him, but it was like everybody I was surrounded by was spewing negativity and victimhood and social justice crap, and I was like, I needed like a total restart, so I stepped away from it. And now this week with the podcast and connecting with these people and being active on social media, it's like, God, if this is like part of the whole process. I don't know.
You've heard us talk about polarity on this program, right? Which I'm sure is something that you understand if you're studying magic, right?
Yeah, totally.
And you see it every day in your life, right? And so that's kind of why you do that middle pillar ritual, so that you can stay centered. But you also have to understand, like, and I think you probably do understand this, is polarity is a fundamental of nature. So it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to escape it or never be polar. You just now understand where that phrase, picking your battles, comes from, because you start to understand energy a little bit better, and that your life is not as long as you think it is.
Yeah, totally.
So I would say, this is just me, but you can choose that battle and take your energy down that road, but I choose not to, because it doesn't matter what president is in there. There's always going to be polarity. It doesn't matter what you talk about. If you're going to, in this community where there's conspiracy, UFOs, or the occult, there's always going to be the fanatics, and there's always going to be, it seems that way. That's what my experience tells me. Now, there are people like Ryan who put up a fight against that, and I think it's very valid to do so. I just don't want to. You're right. I just don't choose to. Maybe I'm being a little bit selfish, but
no,
you
you're not
to move past
selfish.
that.
I get. See, so for some people it might be exhausting to do that. For me, I get energy from doing that. So to me, that's just how I operate.
And that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. See, that's Ryan's journey. I used to go to Ryan back when he was talked about the Wilcock and all this stuff. I'd be like, hey man, you got a lot of good knowledge to share. Let's move past this if we can. And I would try to say it to Ryan as delicately as I can. And he wanted to fight that fight because he thought it was important. And he made me realize that there were people on the fence that weren't really sure where to go, and he didn't want them to be duped, you see? And so that's his journey. That's his uniqueness. And that's what I'm trying to talk about.
Everything that is constantly talks about lately on like both your shows, like with the 5G and the mass surveillance and AI and automation and transhumanism, trans whatever, that is like, those seem like big issues that are beyond those right-left, pro-Trump, anti-Trump debate, but like nobody can even address that because we're stuck in this like 24-hour like circus.
It's a
like,
polar circus.
Somebody got triggered.
You got that right.
Yeah.
It's like, hello, we're stepping into freaking Terminator 2 world. Like, why are we talking about this stuff? So at times I take a side, but it's like at the end of the day, I want everybody to move past it and focus on something more urgent.
Sometimes I take that General Patton point of view where I don't want to play Captain Save Everybody, right? And I mean that in the nicest way. Patton would just be like, look, if you get dealt some bad cards, deal with it, move on. Or, like he slapped the guy that was having panic attacks instead of sitting there trying to explain to him that it was a psychological thing because he had something to do. So I think sometimes, I get that from my dad, and I wish I didn't have it, but it's like, I get this, like, just let the dumb people die thing, Like, if they die from jumping off a bridge, then that, the world's less one dumber person. And I've even said that a couple of times, and I felt like such an ass for saying it, but it's like,
it's like you start to think that maybe the Rockefellers or something kind of makes sense for a moment when they talk about eugenics. Just for a second, you think, hey, maybe they're right. Till you realize that obviously nobody has the right or should have the responsibility to decide who dies and when they die.
Yeah.
But for a moment, it sounds good. If you're stuck in rush hour traffic.
Yeah, I think I get that from my pop. But thanks for calling, Dan. It was a good phone call, man. I'll be listening to your podcast too. What was the name? Hey, give everybody the name of it again. Go ahead.
So the podcast is called The Cosmic Keys Podcast. It's on Spotify and iTunes, and we're on Instagram, and now, as I said, we're on Twitter. Can't wait to keep the Twitter action going. But
go over there and hashtag 666.
Yeah, have fun with that. Bro.
Yeah, like Witchy Ho 666, same as my daddy 69.
Yeah, have fun with that. Thanks for calling, bro.
Thanks,
all right,
Dan.
take care, guys.
All right, bye-bye. Yeah, so we got to take a break. So Dan makes some good points. That's perfect to calling in because he's going down his own journey, right? And he understands. I guess he understands the occult a little bit. But I want to look at this from more than just magic, because when you get into these stories, the aliens tend to show up. They just show up. Bill
Cooper said, right? When you put the aliens in the middle, all of this stuff.
Yeah. And that's what I want to tie together, because like Alex Sakaris, when he came on here from the Skeptico podcast, he said, I want to move past this whole thing of science versus mysticism or science versus consciousness, and get people to realize that even in that realm of the consciousness may be more than just what's in our brain, that there's something even more behind that's going on. And you see that with like Whitley Strieber, the Aleister Crowley story, Grant Morrison, and others who got into understanding the nature of consciousness and became effective explorers of consciousness. And then next thing you know, they're running into alien beings or having encounters. And that's something that I'm really fascinated with right now. And I'm sure some of you are going, well, Joe, duh. I mean, I've got all the answers. If you'll just listen to me. I'm sorry. I don't think you do. But
you know what, Joe?
Listen to you.
I got a really quick story. If you have a moment, I think I want to share with you. I've never shared it on air before.
We got to take a break. Do you want to hang out through the break and then tell us like after that? Because I'd be willing to listen to it.
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to hold you up, bro.
No, it's fine. I'll stay with you through break. I guess it sort of has to do with aliens. I don't call them aliens, but it's just part of the story I found was interesting. So I'll hang out a second.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So we're going to take a short break here. We're talking about the hero's journey, your hidden story, hacking the system, so to speak. And if you want to call in, it's 1-800-588-0335. Text in is 501-777-5631. Stick around.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
The truth is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
Do you ever wonder why there's so much show in politics? Do you ever wonder why America's not getting fixed? Ever wonder why our media is not reporting the news? They report only their biased opinion. Are you tired of feeling like a controlled rat? Do you wonder what's next? If you're looking for answers, join me, Ronnie McMullen, for my new show, Deep Waters Radio. That's Deep Waters Radio. Monday nights, 9 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Fringe FM.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast where we tell real paranormal experiences of people from around the world. And we also conduct interviews with authors, investigators, psychics, and mediums. Real people, real stories, real fear. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Fringe FM. See you then.
Hi, guys. Matt Ray with America's First News. And if you're like me, you're probably still looking for that special Christmas gift for your wife or girlfriend. Treat her to the very best this year. The world's softest pajamas from Pajamagram. Because they are the world's softest pajamas, they're lighter than a cloud, softer than a bunny. They're like cashmere, only better, and you'll love the way they look. She'll love the way they feel. The softness, the warmth, the comfort. And if you're like me, you can't stand wrapping presents. It's tough to do. Well, get this. Pajamagram includes free gift packaging. All you have to do is make the order, and delivery is guaranteed by Christmas. Plus, they're backed by a 100% lifetime guarantee. You risk nothing but the look on her face, guys, when she opens the Pajamagram. So go to pajamagram.com right now. That's pajamagram.com. Tell them Matt Ray sent you. That's pajamagram.com. Tell them Matt Ray sent you.
When I'm done running with the wolves after hunting down a half-ton bison, I look forward to a mind-teetering escapade evening on the Fringe FM.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
This is Cortana from Shift Happens, telling you to pour a glass and park your ass because you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM. Shifthead.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Alex.
I was thinking about the cops because I was looking at photos and stuff online. It seems like more and more I'm seeing police with tattoos, and it just, I'm sorry. You can't tell the gangbangers from the cops now. I mean, what if they had them on their face? Now, that would be crazy because that's where it really originates from. A lot of people don't know that. I know it's a big thing now on like rappers and everybody's doing it. Gang members have them. Everybody's kind of doing it now. Musicians and tattoos on their face, crosses, crucifix and stuff like that. Crucifixes, that's what's really funny to me because it's all satanic. All of it. All of it. All of it. Tattoos are straight from hell. Hell sent. Straight from hell. Straight from the bowels of hell. All tattoos. All tattoos. Period. End of story. Oh, you didn't know that? Because they were trying to represent the actual demon gods that they worshipped. Straight from hell. Pure evil. Straight from the bowels of hell from Satan himself.
KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
Howdy, this is Catalina, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
Welcome back here. We are here talking about the hero's journey and hacking the system using effective methods to explore consciousness so you can have a better story in your life. You can forecast better. You can divine things better. You can understand the nature of reality a little bit better using methods to explore consciousness. And I guess, obviously magic comes up, but other things have came up tonight as well. Ryan Gable jumped in because we got to talking about shadow people. I had a caller or a listener send me a message about an experience they had. And before the break, you were wanting to tell us, I guess it was a story about something that had happened to you, or an example from what Dan was talking about.
It was relating to what you said about aliens, and we said something about Bill Cooper. Was that Bill Cooper? Yeah, it was Bill. I think it was Bill Cooper. Once you put the aliens in the middle of this, it all makes sense, something like that. Yeah, so I just have a quick story that I wanted to share with you. I believe that I posted the contents of this on the Secret Teachings Facebook page when it happened, and I don't remember it. I don't think that I even talked about it on radio. Just like the shadow people, when things like that happen to me, I don't talk about my personal stories, because even though I know I'm not coming off a certain way, it sounds like I'm coming off a certain way and trying to sell something and be sensational. But I thought this story was interesting because, just like with shadow people or aliens, I'd say more and more today, the stories that we hear about things, there's a balance between people feeling comfortable to tell those stories so we hear more of them, and then people that recognize that they can tell those stories, make them up, and then get attention and maybe get a book deal or maybe get a TV deal or something. So there's a good mix between the two. In this story, there's a psychic involved. And the psychics that I've talked to, I think I've only talked to one, maybe two legitimate psychics in my life. One of them is named Cassandra Blizzard. I've brought her up many times because I know her much more well than the other people that I've talked to.
Sure.
So anyway, I'll tell you the story really quick. This transpired over a couple of weeks. And what happened initially was I was sitting in my radio studio. This is in Arizona, and I don't really want to say any more than that, but I was sitting in my radio studio in Arizona, and a series of events transpired over a period of a couple of weeks to a couple of months. And some of these events, I didn't know that they were happening until my neighbor told me that they were happening, Joe. So I'll just kind of give you a few details here. It's not necessarily in chronological order. What I ended up finding out here was that a vehicle would park in my driveway. I lived in kind of like a duplex. A vehicle would park in my driveway and would turn the lights off and would literally pull up right to my apartment. First floor, I guess it's not even really an apartment, it's like half of a house. And they would just sit there. And I didn't know this was happening. And my neighbor, it's not like they thought not to tell me, they hadn't seen me or talked to me. So one day when I was talking to them, they told me that a car was pulling up there and then pulling out. It would sit there a few minutes, then pull away. And they didn't really, I guess, feel the need to call police or anything.
You got a
they
stalker,
maybe also,
man.
Well, stalker or something else. I don't know. So they also thought that, hey, maybe Ryan's got a friend over. That's, which to me it's funny because I don't have friends to come over and do anything. I don't really know anybody. So that's one of the things that happened. And then this just kind of built and built and built and built. One night I was actually listening to you. I was listening to Lighting the Void, and I was sitting on the couch, and I turned you off, and I was going to go to bed, and I just thought, you know what, I think I'm going to watch a TV show. I was kind of feeling eerie. Sometimes I get that feeling listening to late night radio. I don't know what you were talking about. So I decided I popped on an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I was laughing a little bit, trying to laugh so I could get to sleep. And I heard this noise outside, so I walked over, and I mean, it's like midnight, 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning, something around that time. So I walk over, and I go to the window, and I see this blue pickup truck. It's a brand new pickup truck. I mean, it's maybe like 2017, 18. It's brand new, and this truck pulls in to not the driveway, but to the other side of my apartment. And there's a woman that lives on the next apartment over. That's a duplex. So this truck pulls in, and I see this guy get out, and he starts looking around. And again, this is like one something in the morning, and he's got a cell phone, and he's looking at his. This is the weird part. He's looking, and I'll tell you why in a second. He's looking at his cell phone, and then he's looking at the apartments. Like, I mean, clearly he's looking specifically for something. Now, this is a guy. He's not like dressed as a gang member. He's maybe like middle-aged white guy, just average looking guy, average clothes, brand new truck. And so he gets back in the truck, and he pulls forward, and he parks there for a few minutes. And I saw a neighbor of mine diagonally, usually goes out all times of the night and walks his dog. And so he walked outside with his dog, and I'm guessing that spooked the guy in the truck. So he got back, in the truck, because he got out again and got back in and was walking around. I called the police. I was also strapped and ready to rock. And so this guy, he drove off in the truck. So I called the police, and the police said that they drove around, didn't see anything. They came to my door, so on and so forth. The story of calling the police goes. And I had to call the police 2 more times. They told me to call back if I saw something. So next, what happened was that same truck and a Mustang, a brand new, one of these beautiful brand new Mustangs, both of them were driving in circles around my block, like it was the Daytona 500. They drove around 4 different times.
What'd you do a show about before that? What were you talking about? Do you remember?
Well, I'm going to get to that in a second, and I think that that is as interesting as the alien aspect of this. It's a very good question. So they're driving around. So that was the other thing that happened. That people in the parking that pulled into my parking area, the driveway, and then I talked to my neighbor another evening because there was a guy. I don't think this was related. There was a guy. I mean, this is Arizona, some nasty parts of Tucson, and this guy came over, and he was totally out of his mind on some drug, and I called the police. They came and got the guy, but he was over literally like defecating in my yard. So he must have voted for like Bernie or Hillary probably, and he was defecating in my yard. So they got him out of there, and I went to tell the neighbors. They weren't home, so I waited till they got home. I talked to them, and they said, there's been a lot of really weird stuff going on around here, and we've lived here 16 years, and we've never seen any of this stuff before. We've never had to call the police. It's really weird. After you moved in, some of this stuff started happening. And I talked to them, and they told me, they said, you know what, actually the other day we've been really nervous because somebody tagged the apartment building. They put a big, I don't know if it was a gang sign, but they put some type of symbol on the building, like they tagged it, which from what I understand is something, gangs do that, thieves do that. They mark easy to hit properties. And sometimes they'll tag the building across from the one that they want to hit. So in this case, it was right across from mine. Or I've even read that sometimes people do that for like assassinations, or if you're going to monitor what somebody's doing. I don't know. Here's the thing. I'm not saying that this is what's happening to me. I'm just telling you that these things did happen. I don't know what they mean. So long story short, you've got the tagging, people in my driveway, people driving around the block. And I was on radio one afternoon, and I had the window to my room open, and it's first floor, and I look over. I just saw something move, Joe, and I look over and I see like the top of this guy. He's got a hat on the top of this guy's head. He walks down to where my door is. I can see all of the front door, everything from the window in the bedroom. And so I was on break. I got up and I went and looked. I didn't bother going to the door, and I looked, and this guy again, not a weird looking guy, just an average looking guy, almost too average. He's got like a plaid shirt on, a vest, and a hat, and he has an iPad, and he literally, I'm not exaggerating, I'm not making this up, I'm not joking, he literally stands and stares at the front of my apartment and specifically he didn't ring the doorbell or knock. He stared directly at my front door for an unusually long amount of time. Like if this guy was looking for an apartment number, he'd have been able to find it. If he was looking for an address.
You got a stalker, man. Have you?
Well,
that was a long time ago, though, right? Was it different? Well, you may have a group of people after you then. You might have said something to piss somebody off or something, you know?
Sure. Yes. Okay. So that's one of the things I started thinking. The weirder thing, though, is the first guy has the cell phone and he's just staring. And maybe, yeah, that's a stalker and they're looking for what, you know, somebody told them to look for, the apartment or me. I don't know. So this guy is standing there like a robot, though. This is where it gets weird. This guy's standing there like a robot, and he looks up at the door, and then down at the tablet, and then up at the door, down, and then he walked away. And dude, I ran out after that. Like when he walked away, I mean, I've got a revolver. I'm ready to go. I walked out with that just to kind of peek. And the guy just vanished and disappeared. He wasn't in the back. He wasn't on the side. I looked down the road. He wasn't anywhere, just like he disappeared.
What if? Okay. So what if they were playing? And this is a good question. Okay. What if they were playing those not Pokemon, but there's another game. Oh, what the hell is the name of that game? Where they?
Well, you would go door to door and look at people's doors.
Man, I'm telling you, those Pokemon balls are in some weird places now. But. Not Pokemon. There's another one. I can't think of the name of it, but it's interactive where they put things all over the place, and you got to go. I've even seen them race cars and do stuff. Ingress.
But
that's the other one.
At 1 o'clock in the morning, middle-aged white men standing in front of my door.
I don't know about standing in front of your door, but I know that me and Jeff, the guy that used to do the news here, we used to play Ingress till 3 a.m. driving around doing weird. And Jeff got pulled over by the police one time. Because he was like, why the hell are you driving around a cemetery acting crazy? He said, I seen you pull over here and pull over there. And he showed the cop that it was the game he was playing, you know?
Well, yeah, that's suspicious, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, people playing those games could look suspicious, but the fact that he was at your door, that's a little weird, man. You know, I would have walked out to the door and be like, man, can I help you? And if you're locked and loaded, somebody's asking over at Spreaker if we're right wing. What the hell has that got to do? What? How did we?
Why? Because I said I have a revolver and I'll defend myself. Why does that make me right wing? That makes me a human being.
I consider myself a little bit left, like a Southern Democratish type, and I've got a closet full of guns, so I don't know what that's got to do with it.
Yeah, let me tell you something. If I could find a cheap AK-47 or an AR-15 or anything that was semi-automatic, I would buy it. I just can't afford it.
Yeah,
but
that's funny though.
That's besides the point.
But I'm thinking, okay, all of the stuff you told me they possibly could have been playing. Sammy brought this up over at Spreaker too, that they possibly could have been playing Pokemon, but standing in front of the door and just staring and looking down and staring. That's maybe
and
somebody was pinging you.
Pulling into the driveway and sitting there with the lights off and just staring, into my apartment window.
You've had other crazy stuff happen too, though. I don't know if you want to talk about it, but you've had some pretty wild stuff happen.
I can mention that. I've mentioned that on my show before. I've told Clyde because it involved him in a couple of cases. So let me wrap this story up really quickly and to get to the alien part. So I had all that. There were a few other little details, but there's no time, I guess, to really go into that tonight. I don't want to bore listeners. Nobody knew about that. And again, this transpired over a couple of weeks to a couple of months, all built up. And I decided one evening to call my friend Jack, who co-hosts with me on the Secret Teaching sometimes. He's from the Messenger of Information website, messengerof.info. And I had, again, Joe, I had not told anybody. This was before I posted anything on Facebook and before I had even mentioned it to you at the time. So nobody knew about this. So I contacted Jack just to talk to him and get his advice. And he said he was talking to a woman that I guess it's kind of like a psychic group that he does where he lives. It's like a get together. He's talking to this woman, and I'd probably butcher the story if I told it the way that I thought that he told it. So I'll try to simplify it as much as possible. He said he was talking to this woman, and he just brought me up because he knows that I've been going through a lot of transition in life. So he just brought me up to this woman and asked what she felt about me. And he didn't know anything about this. I had a second phone call with him. This was after I told him this. So he didn't know some of the details, but I told him a few things. So he talked to this woman, and I trust Jack 100%. He talked to this woman, and the woman told him, I think that your friend is having some like visitations or something like that. And Jack said, what do you mean? And the woman said, well, people are watching him, and they're monitoring what he's doing. And so this is what Jack told me. Again, I trust Jack, and I don't necessarily think that
mm-hmm.
I don't think that I believe this. I don't know what I believe. I'm just telling you what happened. So the woman, I guess, said something is watching what Ryan is doing.
Something.
They're not, something. They're not bad. They're not evil. They're not trying to hurt him, but they're taking this, again, this is what they said. It's not what I'm saying. They're taking like data. And if anything, which is funny because that Jack's nickname for me has always been Data. And so he said that she told him they were taking like information and monitoring my progress in what I'm doing. And that if anything, when he asked like, well, what do you mean something? She said they're not really alien, but they're not really human. They're more like hybrid Men in Black type men, which they didn't come in black, so I don't know. So the point is, all of that happened. Jack had very limited details. He talked to a friend of his just in passing in a group, and she knew, in the longer story, she knew more details than even he knew, stuff I didn't even tell him this psychic apparently knew. So I don't know if I believe that, but that's a very, very weird and strange story that climaxes with this person saying that something was monitoring what I'm doing. I don't know, but
I would have followed that up.
Creepy.
That's just me, though. I would have. Did you ever get to talk to that person that said they saw the stuff?
No, I never talked to that person, and that's just a personal thing of mine. There are sometimes I just don't feel like pursuing those types of conversations. I just let things, as they say, let a sleeping dog lay. That's typically what I do when these types of things happen. That's just my personal opinion. But yeah, maybe I could mention that to Jack and I could get her information. Or I could even have Jack, tell me that story again, and I could take some notes and get some more details out of it. But it's really weird. I don't know if you've ever had that happen to you, but
I've had cars drive. I've had a couple of cars drive by a few times and stop and stuff, but it was really weird. I don't know what it was about, but so yeah, that's pretty interesting, man. I'm glad that don't happen anymore. So Kurt from California texted in and said to the text line, "I'm not a religious person, but prayer works for me to hack the system, and seeing bizarre, unexplained things happen. Sigils and crystals didn't work, and seems personal to each person as to what works." That's a pretty good subject we can explore too, and we're probably going to do that tomorrow night because Jason Augustus Anukum is going to be on the show, and we're going to talk about his system, which is called the New Hermetics. So where he's taken a system of magic and updated it based on his magical practice. And he studied a little bit of Golden Dawn, a little bit of Franz Barden, a little bit of Crowley, and he put it together in a way that makes, I guess you could say, makes more sense to a person to help improve a person's life. And so as we continue to explore to become more effective explorers of consciousness, that's a system we're going to look at tomorrow night. So that ought to be pretty interesting.
Cool.
And I like to see that stuff. See, that's what I like to see, the human potential, and see how we can kind of evolve and figure this thing out, because somebody's going to stumble upon something pretty wild one of these days. Not that we already haven't, but something that can help us look into these realms a little bit more. But also, if sigil magic isn't working for you, what a magician typically does is they'll maybe look at the planetary alignments when you did the magic, and did you actually let it go? Did you forget about it? Because there's a whole very crazy process to all of that. So but prayer definitely works. I would consider the Psalms to be a very good system of magic. Absolutely.
That's what Joe also tells me off air all the time. So Joe tells me that off air is as much as he says it on air.
Yeah,
Prayer
if you feel like somebody's trying to curse you, or you feel like you're attacked by anything evil, even if you get the inkling of it, I would break out the Book of Psalms any day of the week.
Well, real quick,
I know you can penetrate it.
I know we're almost out of time. I'm going to take maybe less than 60 seconds because you mentioned those other things that happened to me. I'm going to tell you something that the internet company CenturyLink told me. I did a handful of shows with Clyde Lewis a couple of years ago. I do several shows with him a year on Ground Zero. So I did a couple of shows with him. And I think I did a total of 3 shows that year with Clyde. This was 2 years ago. And all the shows I did, my internet went out before the show started. Totally went out. And CenturyLink told me, this is what they told me when they first came. They said, somebody physically cut all of the internet lines to your apartment. I don't know how it works. I don't know how that works, Joe, but that's what they told me. And they did it right before the show with Clyde Lewis, like back to back.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what that means. That's what they told me.
You're on somebody's list, brother.
Yeah. I apparently so. I think it's funny. That I'm on a list. I don't know.
Was your phone line cut or just the internet?
I didn't have a phone line.
Okay, so
but, I didn't have service. There was a line, but I didn't have service.
Yeah, so I believe like CenturyLink's DSL, I think it was coming through your phone line, right? Or was it coming through your cable?
Probably. Yeah, actually it was coming through the wall jack, like a
phone jack.
Like a phone jack, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a home, man, that would take somebody that knew what they were doing, because there's these little units called home, I guess there's home offices, and then there's remote terminals. And they can open those things up and figure out which one's you and cut that sucker. So they'd have to know what they were doing.
But let me be clear. I don't think that this is the cabal. I don't think it's the Illuminati. Let's be very clear here, okay?
Yeah, and let me be clear. The time the station got attacked, I don't think it was the cabal or the government or the Illuminati. You can pay some kid $40 and send a DDoS attack to somebody. I found out after that. But I kind of knew that. Anyways, we do got to get out of here. Thank you so much for coming back on. I had to have you on when we started talking about those black figures, because I know you and I had a discussion about that off air. So thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it, Joe.
And if you're listening, the show about the booms, that's coming up, right? You're finally going to do that one. Cool.
Booms and screeches coming up next, all updated.
All right.
It's pretty creepy, so be prepared. It actually, I think, is going to creep me out a lot too.
Cool. I'll stay up and listen to it. And also, if you guys know that, or if you don't know, this show is on every single night of the week, Monday through Friday. After this show, The Secret Teachings is on. And also, you have to know, because I got to say it, this show was produced by the Fringe FM and cannot be resyndicated without written permission. And music was by Chronox, Kevin MacLeod, Space Station, Guitar Man by Bundy. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Jason Augustus Anukum will be on the show talking about the new Hermetics. Good night.
On this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised. We told you weeknights on the Fringe FM are now even better, and we mean it.
Do it live!
Where else can you hear the best shows and the best talent? Kick off your evening with our newest host, Alex Exum, live at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern. Hang out with me, Joe Roop, on Lighting the Void at 9 Pacific, midnight Eastern. Ryan Gable expands your mind on the secret teachings at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern. We're bringing the heat every single night. Fire it up, The Fringe FM.
Yahoy there. This is Gigi from Shift Happens. And holy shit, you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM. Hey, don't you dare turn that speaker